Today, we're going to be taking a look at some incredible FNAF fan games that almost nobody noticed. From hidden gems buried beneath bigger releases, to projects that deserve far more attention than they ever received, these games quietly slipped under the radar. Some of these are shockingly high quality considering how few people know about them, so let's uncover them. What do you think is the most underrated Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? A series that is so amazing you'd think it'd be talked about everywhere, but when you go to check, it seems like nobody has ever even heard of it. The game we'll be covering today is one of those games for me, and when doing research for this video, especially when talking about the lore, I found it incredibly difficult to piece it together because of how little information there seems to be about it. But rest assured, I think I've got it figured out. The game we'll be covering today is Project Readjusted, a FNAF fan game with one of my favorite stories of all time. Sit back, relax, and let's jump into this amazing trilogy together. First big change I noticed in Project Readjusted from most FNAF games is the way the phone calls were handled. Rather than having the phone calls take place inside the game, this game instead chooses to have us listen to the phone call before we even load into the office, instead giving us a still image to look at showing the characters we will be seeing on each night. I'll admit it's unique, however, I think I'd personally prefer to be able to mess around with the cameras, mechanics, and so on while the phone guy is talking, and just have to make sure nobody moves while that's happening. I feel that's a much better way to utilize the first phone call in a FNAF game. The first phone call doesn't give out any meaningful information, really just going over how the main character Buster works, but it's my job to explain the mechanics, so I don't think I'll be letting the depressed sounding Wei Ji do that for me. Upon loading into the office, you may feel just a little cramped, and that's normal. This office is teeny tiny, like much smaller than most FNAF offices I've seen in my days. Obviously, we have a door to the office, because if we didn't, I'd question how we even got into the room in the first place. However, the interesting thing about this door is that it doesn't close. Oh, Dexter, does it not have an actual door? Like, it's just a doorway? No, there's a door. Our character just for some reason chooses not to close it. But instead of thinking that's because we're playing in the shoes of a dumbass, I'm instead going to assume it's because we're playing in the shoes of a badass who isn't scared of anything. We also, of course, have our cameras, which are very interesting to say the least. To start, they have two modes, lights on mode and useless mode, because as I'm sure you could have guessed, if the lights are off, you can't see anything. I know, groundbreaking. You'll also notice you have a camera stability percentage. What does that mean? Well, as the name suggests, it reads the percentage of your camera stability. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking like that. While on your cameras, the stability will quickly decrease. Putting the camera down will cause it to quickly increase back up. If it drops down to 0, you're gonna have to wait a while before being able to use it again. So, what about that Buster fella I mentioned earlier? How does he work? Great question, viewer of questionable stench. Buster is as basic as a character can get. I'm sure you could probably guess what he does, but it's my job to tell you. Buster will move around through the cameras with the goal of getting to your office. Once there, he'll peek his little head through the door. Using this comically large blue button on the wall of your office, you can shine a light into the doorway, revealing he has the teeth of a British person. Hold this light on him for long enough and he'll go away. Simple sugar. After night 1, we get a short cutscene. You guys seem to like the narration I did in my Maggie's video, so instead of just summarizing what happened like I would usually do, I figured, why not narrate this as well? Hey, it's been a long time, you and me. We finally met ends on a good note, for now. I'm only implying that our experience will be better. Now, there is something I need to tell you. I know I'm jumping to conclusions without explaining who I am, but bear with me. There is something inside this diner. Just maybe put on some type of gig to make some fool believe you to make them work here. Maybe that person will lure that thing out. I'll tell you more tomorrow, but for now, let's begin to go inside. Let's take the back alley, as it's less noticeable. Come along, we only have 5 days. Sounds like someone's trying to dupe us and use us as bait. That's not very kind, vaguely barbaric. But whatever, we're already working here. I guess it's just in our best interest to not die. Moving on to night 2, you can quickly take a little nap because the phone guy takes a billion years to talk about the new character this night adds, and ramble about some arcade machines. The new character added on this night is Old Buster. At least, that's the name that would make sense. However, this character's name is actually Redeemer. Quite literally, being an older Buster model, I can't quite wrap my head around why they chose to name him in the way they did. Redeemer makes use of your vents, something I've neglected to mention thus far. You can't really see it, but the vent is to the right of your office behind the door, so just out of sight. Redeemer does whatever he damn well pleases until he eventually decides to enter the vent. When he does, an obvious sound cue will play letting you know he's entered. Once he reaches your office, he'll dive in. When he's in your office, it's very important that you don't look at him. However, since the office we're in is so small, it may prove very difficult to just look away from him. So you'll have to be looking at your cameras while he's in your office instead. I guess Redeemer has the mindset of, if I can't see him, he can't see me. Stupid ass robot. This, however, may bring up a possible conflict. If your camera stability is too low by the time Redeemer gets to your office, it's safe to say that you wouldn't have a very good time. But luckily for us, at this point in the game, checking the cameras is entirely useless. So as of right now, this shouldn't be a problem. Hey, so I was looking around in these garbage bins and found a key. It's great, I know, the low effort put into protecting this place. Anyways, remember that idea I had, well, a few minutes ago? I got this one guy on my phone now. His name is Hayden Simmons. Pretty dumb fellow. I bet he doesn't even know of this place. Probably a high school dropout or a kid desperate for some easy cash. Well, now let's venture inside this establishment and set up an office for our buddy. So, we know the name of our character, Hayden Simmons. Too bad his name is one of the rhyming Aiden names, probably the worst group of names anybody could have. That's besides the point though. It seems like the building we're working in isn't even supposed to have an office. It's clear something sinister is going on here, but we don't quite know what yet. Moving on to night 3, I'm going to spare you the details and have us skip the phone call because he explains what the newest character does in an amount of time that could be an entire video by itself. Night 3 introduces Ned. Ned is ugly, like ugly as sin. He's got a face not even a mother could love. Booger-ah, boy. He will try to make his way to your office via the long hallway in the building. Unlike Buster, he isn't a complete dumbass, so the light trick won't really work on him. What will work on him, however, is the replace machinery button that I've blatantly and purposefully ignored up until this point, because explaining it earlier really wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense, now would it? Ned has multiple stages in the hallway. Every time you use the replace machinery button, he will go back a stage. I'm sure you can figure out how this works. Push him back, wait for the button to recharge, push him back again, keep him away from your office, which would in turn keep him away from your genitals. Whoopity-doo. However, this does bring up the issue of us needing to use our cameras now. So in combination with Redeemer, Ned could end up being a big problem down the road. Alright, sorry for keeping you waiting, but I had to run back to my car to get a battery for my phone. It's pretty low percentage right now, but it'll last now. Hayden says he'll be able to work next week, which is great. We'll pay him around $150 for his work, I guess. Maybe it's considered a scam to him, but I don't care. He just said he's not a fan of night jobs, but will do it anyways, and he'll play on his phone. That's gonna go down well. Anyways, let's head inside. The Wi-Fi better not be bad inside, I swear. Not much to note from this cutscene. We know we're getting criminally underpaid, and we know that playing on our phone really isn't going to be an option, which just makes me smile from ear to ear personally. Night 4 introduces 2 new characters. However, one of them serves to be more of an annoyance than an actual threat, so we'll talk about him first. Greg is a little asshole. Really, this game's Balloon Boy. Not because he has the same mechanic, except I lied because he kinda does. His main goal is to disable your light and leave you vulnerable to Buster. He'll slowly crawl across your office. You will have to click him multiple times to make him go away. If you don't, he'll park his fat ass on the button and prevent you from using your light. You might be asking yourself, Dxtr, clicking on him? How does the game justify that making sense? Perfect question. From the way the phone guy describes it, it's just poking him. So I guess this motherfucker's just the Pillsbury Doughboy. Ticklish ass robot. The other That's so fucking stupid. The other character introduced on this night is Glancy, what I feel is this game's most frustrating character. Glancy tries to get into the back storage room and just literally fuck up everything in the entire building. Rip wires, killing your lights and your camera. So obviously something you should want to avoid. The way you do so is very easy. Remember how I mentioned the cameras had two states, on and useless? Well, turns out I lied, as the useless mode actually isn't useless. When Glancy gets into this back room, all you have to do is turn the camera lights off and he won't be able to see shit, making him decide to travel into another room by accident. I'd imagine it's an accident since he can't see, but he could have easily just gotten pissed off and left on his own accord. Which, if he can see where the exit is, you'd probably think he could see the wires, but I guess not. We're inside. Now, let's just put some of these cameras around the building and we'll be all set. Oh, never mind. There's a panel lying down on this shelf. Wait. You hear that? Well, anyways, you'll record calls just to convince him, Andrew. Just do a casual voice or whatever. Nice, these'll work. What the? Did I just hear walking? Wait, who are you? Andrew, run. He's looking for me. I'll see you around, friend. Dope. So we know the name of our phone guy, Andrew. Sounds like whoever is heard in these cutscenes isn't Andrew then. And apparently upon entering the building, something found them. Andrew ran, leaving whoever he was with behind, not knowing what the outcome was. Night 5's phone call actually has something interesting in it, if you could believe that. Andrew tells us that the character introduced on this night has something they want. Finally, a motive for what they're doing. Apparently this new character, Vinard, has a special chip that they really want. Andrew doesn't explain why they want this chip, but I'm sure we're gonna find out. Speaking of Vinard, what does he do? Well, he will try to hack the cameras so that you can't use them, and then wheel his way over to your office to kill you. Not sure why he has to disable the cameras to do that, but he does, I guess. Occasionally, you will see a purple error next to his camera. When you do, all you have to do is go to that camera and turn the light off so he can't see. Because like some people, he can't type without looking at the keyboard. Embarrassing. That's a talent you probably want to learn if you're on a computer all day. But that's really all he does. It really starts to show on this night how difficult this game can be, requiring you to be in the cameras very frequently. The only real chance you'll get to recharge your stability is when Buster is attacking, and I think that was on purpose for the sake of balancing, but maybe I'm being too optimistic. Unlike every other night, Night 5 doesn't have a post-night cutscene, so I can't talk about that. What I can talk about, however, is an Easter egg, and a fun piece of trivia about one of the characters in this game. After completing Night 5, you will unlock Custom Night. Inside, if you set everyone to max and click the Fox plushie in your office, you'll get this jump scare. And if you're interested in something about Vinard, he's actually a character made by Mixlass, the guy that made Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. and Baby's Nightmare Circus, which I've covered on this channel before. Definitely go watch that video after you finish this one. And as a result of using Mixlass's character, Mixlass then used one of Mechless's characters in his game Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Pretty cool if you ask me. But that is all Project Readjusted has to offer. Overall, I think the game is surprisingly mechanically complex for a first game, something pretty uncommon with fan games that take place in a series like this. But don't let the lack of lore fool you, as Project Readjusted has one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen, and it continues in Project Readjusted 2. It's been so long since I've seen Matthew. He just disappeared. I must find him again. I have so many questions. I could possibly get answers from the new Buster's location. The location is currently being renovated, but they must need some kind of guard. Could be hiding there after all this time. Well, let's see where this takes me in my hunt to find him. Project Readjusted 2 opens with a mission already in mind, finding a man named Matthew. I'm unsure who Matthew could be. My only guess at this time is it's the guy that got left behind by Andrew in the first game, but that is obviously unconfirmed as of now. Our player, Andrew, enters an old Buster's location to look for answers, throwing us right into Night 1. Loading into Night 1, we get a call from the phone guy who goes over the basics of what we'll be doing. He mentions that they're currently working on newer models of all the characters. Not a whole lot of interest to point out during this call. However, what is of interest is how scared I was when I first saw the equivalent of 3 fucking music boxes in one camera. But lucky us, we don't have to worry about that right now. Unlike Readjusted 1, this game doesn't have anything to stop you from staring at your cameras for as long as you'd like, which is a breath of fresh air. But that only means that this game is going to be AIDS in a different way, and we'll figure out how soon. Let's talk about the first and only threat Night 1 introduces, Cable Buster, who I'm just going to be calling Buster because I'm lazy. Buster makes use of a new mechanic this game introduces, the Showtime tapes in Camera 1. When Buster gets to either Camera 5 or Camera 7, you will have to look at him. He will be repeating a day of the week. I don't know why he feels the need to say it out loud constantly. Phone guy explained that apparently that's what he's designed to do, walk around the building and inform people when the show is about to start. But why would he say the day of the week if that was the case? I have no idea. Once Buster says what day of the week the show is on, you will have to quickly go to Camera 1, set the sound file to the day of the week he stated, and play the audio track. This will cause him to meander back to Camera 1 and do a little jiggy. Just kidding, he doesn't dance. I just lied to you. Something isn't right. Papers are coming in about a missing person. A missing person at the old Buster's. It must have been the spy that Matthew took care of. He's on the prowl and I will end it in this place. There's no way I can fail this. His tracks are so hidden yet so predictable. I just need more clues. So, Matthew killed a guy, and not just any guy, he killed a spy. So clearly Matthew is probably a bad and dangerous man. So we should approach with caution. Not knowing anything else, we move on to Night 2. Night 2, the phone guy introduces some new mechanics, but fuck him, my voice sounds better. Night 2 introduces Infested Glancer, but before we talk about what he does, we should talk about the second thing our cameras can do. Show some air ducts! Hooray! The air duct menu is very reminiscent of the ones from Ultimate Custom Night. You have a radar that you can use to detect anything moving inside. Spoiler alert, Glancer is inside. You may also notice that there are 3 things you can repair. Are your FNAF 3 senses going off? Because mine are going haywire and it's making me want to off myself. The 3 things to repair are your radar, your lights, and your doors. Glancer will attack any of the 3 vents in your air ducts, all of which lead to your office. Use the radar to find where he is and close the door when he gets too close. You'll notice that you have a meter on this screen that tracks your door power. If it runs out, you'll have to reboot the doors, and of course, after too many uses of your radar, you'll have to reboot that as well. Glancer brings up a very obvious issue. He's fucking annoying, and he's very fast, easily being the most annoying character in this entire game, demanding the majority of your attention like a clingy girlfriend that you're slowly falling out of love with. And of course, the repairs in this game are some of the most frustrating mechanics I've ever had to deal with, spending the majority of my playthrough listening to that ear-grating beeping. This is where camera stalling comes into play. By staring at Glancer, or Buster if you really wanted to, you can prevent them from moving. Glancer does not initially start in the air ducts, so I'd usually spend as long as I possibly could staring at him so he didn't slip away. Because once he's in those ducts is when he becomes Satan. I can't decide on what to do. This whole situation is terrible. One wrong step and I'm in jail or potentially executed. I'm not falling into that hole of guilt with no way to release it. But damn, corpse inside that Glancer suit has definitely gotta be the spy. What else would Matthew have done to the body? Thrown it out? No way. I got my evidence. Now I just have to find Matthew himself. He can't be stopped now. So apparently there's a body inside of Glancer, the spy that Matthew killed. So yeah, that checks out. It really wouldn't be a FNAF game if people weren't getting stuffed into mascot suits, would it? Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, Magic Suit and Wraith Ned. Let's talk about Ned first since he's less annoying. He's this game's version of a Phantom Chica. Occasionally, he can start to appear on one of your cameras. If you don't look away from him fast enough, he'll jump scare you and cause you to need to repair everything. Your radar, your lights, your doors, your dick. Not super annoying, just get some reflexes and you'll be fine. Magic Suit, on the other hand, is very annoying. This is the guy who thought it'd be really funny to have 3 fucking music boxes at the same time. His 3 plugs will slowly decrease in power. You'll have to keep them charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mic you. Fuck. You'll have to keep Fuck. You'll have to keep him charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mic you. But in all honesty, these 2 new characters aren't even an issue. This entire game's main problem is Glancer. God, I hate him so much I could just stick a fork in my ass. That doesn't even make any sense, but irrational anger causes irrational responses sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. What the hell was that purple thing? Is the air in this place toxic? What the hell? Can't keep working here. I must escape before I lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a feeling finding Matthew won't be easy. Speaking of which, I found a tape from the old location. That Glancer suit had made itself in the backstage. How? Must have found the pieces from when the original Glancer and Glossy characters were split up and put together. I don't know how sewing those 2 together made any sense, but I guess it was good for Halloween. Scratch that. Anyways, Matthew forced that spy corpse down inside the Glancer suit while it was trying to escape. What is wrong with these chips? I feel like someone is controlling them. No way this is artificially programmed in the animatronics. It's too mobile. Now there's more than one thing I need to find out. Great. So it sounds to me that Glancer put himself together and tried to escape the building, but while doing so, Matthew stuffed a corpse of the spy inside of him. What the hell is going on? I have no idea, but hopefully some more context will come along soon. The only character introduced on Night 4 is Wraith Finn, being in my opinion the second biggest threat in this game. Finn will quietly appear in your office. Up until this point, you haven't had any reason to ever lower your camera. Well, Finn is now your reason. When he appears in your office, you will have to hold your mouse over the top half of his body until he fades away. If you don't, say hello to a fuck ton of repairs and a quick death. Something I find really weird about this mechanic is how it's explained in the game. The phone guy literally tells us to put our cursor over it.
She said she stared at what she saw, putting your cursor right on its upper half. That's kind of specific, but whatever. Just her, I guess. Anyway, good night.
I've never really seen a FNAF game be meta like this before, but I guess, how else are you supposed to explain the mechanic? I suppose you could say to stare at it, but that wouldn't indicate you need to touch it with your mouse. Overall, a very goofy introduction, and a character that I forgot about so much, I think I died to him more than any other character throughout this entire franchise. Okay, I have many questions. How did that design get into this place, and how did it just fade out of existence? It was called Finn. We never got around to finishing it. It was like Buster's pal. The head was never done, but he had his other pieces done. Although I noticed this Finn had his hands gone. This place is so damn weird. This place is so damn weird. Alright, so really nothing interesting said there at all. Finn was supposed to be Buster's friend. Buster is a fucking robot. He has no friends. Moving on to Night 5, as it should be much more interesting and hopefully have a more interesting post-night cutscene. Night 5 introduces the last threat this game has to offer, Wraith Vinard. A character that isn't too terrible to deal with, but will really just act to take more of your needed time away from Glancy, which is obviously not something we want. Vinard only ever appears on camera 8. Occasionally, when checking that camera, you will see Vinard's silhouette with no eyes. You will have to stare at him until his eyes appear. Once they appear, you will then have to quickly look away as if you aren't the fucking reason his eyes appeared in the first place. Something super interesting to note that I haven't mentioned so far is how these wraiths have been explained by the phone guy, being the only characters he's convinced aren't real. But you might be wondering, if he doesn't think they're real, why does he mention them? That's a good point. Apparently, the guard that worked here before us left several notes about these wraiths, and the phone guy is reading her notes to us in the phone calls. Maybe as an in case, maybe just to make fun of her, who's to say? Either way, I find it interesting. Vinard? With legs? What is going on anymore? I can't take things seriously. Wait, no. I hear sirens. I still haven't found Matthew. And I got several people outside awaiting my arrival. Police cars. Someone found out. Someone told them. Matthew, you bastard. I will find you. You won't get away with this. I can't believe this is how my story ends. It's not right. I can't. Matthew was never found by any officials or Andrew. Andrew attempted to bring the situation to court, but not enough evidence was collected. Andrew was deemed guilty for the corpse inside Buster's Diner World and was sentenced to death row, his execution following a month after being assigned. This was not the outcome he had thought of. It could have been worse. This story is false. Well, goddamn! Quick recap. In this game, we play as Andrew, the phone guy from the first game. We still don't fully know exactly who Matthew is, but he called the police and informed them that Andrew was at the building and had killed someone. They arrived, found the body in the Glancer suit, and had Andrew killed, giving us the fake ending. Oh god, endings, Dexter. Let's quickly go over what it takes to get this true ending, please. Well, there are several minigames you will need to complete throughout the game in order to get this true ending. Let's blast through how to get them. During each night, a specific camera will have its name flickering slightly. Clicking on the name will shoot you into the minigame. On night 1, it's the main supply camera. On night 2, it's the West Hall. Night 3, it's the secondary supply entry. Night 4, it's the secondary supply entry again. And night 5, it's the power breaker. After completing all the minigames and successfully beating night 5, you'll get the true ending instead. The minigame. It spoke the words I couldn't find myself. Matthew died with his baby. A tape left on him. I can't explain what I've experienced here. I can't go on with this sudden guilt. This damned children's entertainment chain should have never happened. This outcome was not proper. And I can't handle it. I don't know what will happen next. I'll report the death of him and the corpse to the police. At least I can get off with no charges. I can't put myself to do it. I can't go the route my gut wants me to go. Later the same night, Andrew had a heart attack. No evidence was ever turned into the police due to this. Nearly a week later, police arrived after suspicion from pedestrians roaming the streets. Police had not told any officials about what was found and began to demolish the location. Andrew's story is over. An ending to a tragic story. There are no solutions to the problem. Diner World Entertainment was shut down immediately and ran out of business, seeking a new opportunity to reach into kids' hearts. This is the true story. Well, goddamn! Turns out it didn't matter what he did. Andrew still died, and no word of Matthew was ever heard from the police. We just can't win, can we? Well, luckily for us, this storyline does continue, and even more lucky for us, it continues in the best game in the series, and arguably one of the most creative FNAF games ever designed.
I know who you are, Andrew Vargas. I've seen your name in records before. I know what you're doing. You want information. Lots of it. I'm no provider, but I can lead you to what you want. I know that man, Matthew, has been nothing but a mystery to you. His image is shrouded in a dense fog that your gaze cannot penetrate. But you want to break it, do you not? You can either go the full walk or fall short. There is no try this time. All the information you want to grasp so badly can be obtained. All you have to do is satisfy us. There are 3 captives full of knowledge below the storage facility. Treat them to our satisfaction, and they will live out to the 5th and final day. On that day, they will be free. They will be able to tell you all that they know. This is what you want, right? The data you seek is waiting for you.
And here we are! Project Readjusted 3, the last game in the series and undoubtedly the best. This opening cutscene throws us right into the world of this twisted game. We play as Andrew. That might seem a bit confusing since Andrew died in the last game. But guess what? Apparently, both of the fucking endings weren't real. So what the fuck? I'm not joking, by the way. I'm being completely serious. Both of the endings in the second game aren't real. The true ending isn't real. Both the fake ending and the true ending both didn't fucking happen, because it takes place before this one. So like, what the fuck was that all about, huh? Anyways, we're not sure who was speaking to us in that cutscene, but apparently there are 3 survivors that have all the information we need to solve whatever is going on with Matthew. And with that, we're tossed into night 1. This game does progress based on objectives instead of time, but rather than a game like Pizzeria Simulator where the tasks you have to complete are mind-numbing, the task in this game actually requires a small bit of brain power, and is truly one of the most creative takes on a FNAF game I've ever seen. We're tasked with protecting these 3 captives. In the cameras, you'll be able to see 3 rooms. Each of these rooms holds one of the captives. You can keep track of their stats at the bottom of the monitor, see how much hunger, thirst, and satisfaction they're all at. Note how much supply you have. Your goal throughout this night is to send these captives shipments of food and water. Then, once they're all satisfied, the night can end. When you open the gate, food and water will slowly be dispensed. You can control which room these packages will go to. The longer you take to send a captive something, the lower their satisfaction will go. At the top of the screen, you'll see a minimum grade you need to complete the night, and which grade you're currently at, meaning you don't have to fill each room up to its entirety to complete the night. However, I'm a fucking badass and chose to get the best grade possible on each night. In order to refill your supplies, you will have to complete a task. A set of numbers will appear in a random order and you will have to click them in that order. When you finish, your supply will be slightly filled. Side note, if you ever see this sliding minigame instead of the number 1, that's because in that specific moment, I'm using footage from Indie Fuel, and in his playthrough, he was playing an earlier version of the game that used a different minigame. And that's all that happens on night 1. I could talk about the cameras for sure, but I think that'll become much more important in night 2, which actually brings on the first and main threat this game has to offer. But before we can get to that, in true final game lore dump fashion, after each night we get a post-night minigame to have fun with. In this minigame, we just kinda walk around. We check the stage in the main room and notice that there's supposed to be 2 animatronics on stage, the other being Finn. You may remember him from the second game. We go backstage where we believe Finn should be, only to find a dead child on the ground, bringing this minigame to a close. Something really awesome about this game is the patient hub. Dexter, what's the patient hub? If you'd shut the fuck up and watch the video like a normal person, instead of continuously asking questions like the girl you're watching a movie with that you really wish you didn't invite over because you're just trying to watch the fucking movie, I'd explain it to you. Sorry, lost my temper a little bit. Anyways, the patient hub is on the menu. Using it will actually let you go to talk to the 3 people you're protecting throughout the nights. Throughout the nights, heading to the patient hub, they will give you different pieces of information as the game goes on. On this first night, they don't tell you anything since they've been told they can't yet, probably by whoever put them here. This is such a cool and interesting integration into this game, and I think this is one of the big reasons why this game in particular is so underrated. Night 2 is where this game really starts to get real, introducing the first main threat of the game, Busted. Inside of your monitor, you'll notice the left half that I haven't really mentioned. Well, I'm about to mention it. You'll notice that it only has 3 cameras, but don't let that fool you. Busted will move around the cameras, not only trying to get to you, but to get to the captives as well. If at any point you can't find him on your cameras, that means he's in your office. Your office, by the way, is another thing I've neglected to mention. There are 4 entrances to your office, 2 on each side. You have the 2 obvious hallways in front of you, and then the 2 holes in your walls to the sides of you. Busted is very quiet, so you will have to make sure you're tracking him. Once Busted enters your office, you will have to scare him away with the light. Now, you may think, like most FNAF games, that we'd be given a flashlight, but no, that'd be too easy. In Project Readjusted 3, you're given a fucking glow stick to defend yourself. You know, one of those crack and shake things? Yeah, that's our main means of defense. When Busted is in your office, you have to hold the glow stick on him to scare him away, but there's a catch. Your glow stick cannot be used for very long at all. It has a very short lifespan, so you have to check really fucking quickly. Obviously, if you don't, you'll die. But if you remember, I mentioned Busted being able to attack the captives as well. While watching Busted on your cameras, you may notice that on any of the three, he may get a bit too close to some of the patient doors. If he does, that's how you know he's about to attack them. When you see him doing this, you must ring the bell on your desk. The noise will attract him to your office and away from the patients. Something super interesting about Busted attacking patients is that if he kills one, you don't lose, and it will actually make the remaining nights easier since you'll have less mouths to feed. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if a patient dies, they will never come back throughout the rest of the game. That means no more talking to them in the patient hub at the end of the nights. And of course, if you let all 3 patients die, then you will lose the game. This right here is one of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen in a FNAF game. Project Readjusted 3 is literally just being placed in a saw trap, really. In the post-night 2 minigame, we talk with the other guards about what we saw. They mentioned this is the second time this has happened. Walking up to the stage, we find another dead child, presumably killed by Buster. We're told to check the office for anything else, and we do. Upon finding nothing, we walk back, only to see the ghost of some unknown spirit that looks like Finn walking away.
I started seeing some weird things recently. They were purple weird things. It got closer as I blinded myself, but as I looked at it, it faded away. I don't know what to do. At least the leader himself isn't down here. He is very strict. He would be looking at me, making sure I was staying put and acting appropriately. He threatened to stop liquids from coming into my room if I didn't listen. He really wants us to go his way, so just send us supplies like he wants, at least when he is nearby. As long as he doesn't notice you aren't doing what he wants, you should be fine.
This place is a crazed house, and it's all your fault. I can't believe this. You better get out of here in the end, with me alive.
I've started hearing screams. It sounded like it came from a room adjacent to mine. Maybe I'm hallucinating. After all, we are under that old building. You know it had the fume problem, right? Surely you do. You used to work there. You told us all about you. My sister used to work there, but she hasn't touched it since. I think I've figured out why now. Just don't forget about your main threat, but don't let yourself get too paranoid about it. You got this.
On night 3, we get introduced to the last threat this game has to offer, the purple hallucinations, explained by the fact that there are strange fumes coming from the facility above. These hallucinations act as a nuisance, but a nuisance you're going to want to maintain. They can appear in any of your cameras or in your office, and they're very quiet. If they're on your cameras, you have to stare at them, and if they're in your office, you have to flash your glow stick at them. They will never kill you themselves, but they will scare the patients if you don't get rid of them. And if the patients get scared, they'll scream, and Busted will kill them. Not at all a difficult threat, but an annoying one nonetheless. The game doesn't really start to get too difficult yet at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 3 minigame. In the post-night 3 minigame, we really just want to get out of the building at this point. We meet a guard who says that the crowd outside is still going spastic. As we try to walk outside, I'm assuming we start hallucinating? I'm not really sure because I have no idea what else I'm looking at could possibly even be. And the minigame comes to a close.
I'm too paranoid. You need to just get us out of here. The creatures are multiplying. Just more staring. Listen out for a squeal if something goes wrong over here. Those purple figures always come for us. Just make sure to get rid of them, please.
What's going on over on your end? I keep hearing such strange noises. If you want something out of me, you better keep me satisfied. I don't want whatever's coming for you near me. Ring the bell you were given if one of them is heading to my room, I want to ring that bell all the time, since it is causing noises, of course. Don't be stupid.
Hey, I still can't talk about what I know yet, but I think I know something that may help you in your endeavors. I know some of the quirks of that thing that is hunting you right now. It's very stealthy. You need to keep an eye on it all the time. It may hide in various spots, so make sure to be up to snuff with your surroundings. I don't know much about its chip data, though. I only ever overheard my sister read out some blueprints she picked up on her last workday a few years ago.
Night 4 doesn't introduce anything new, however I do want to take this time to mention a mechanic this game has that makes the entire experience way more difficult than it would normally be. Switching cameras. I know, that may sound like a mechanic that most people wouldn't even think twice about, but it's on this night that Busted can start to get pretty quick when moving around. So quickly moving through the cameras will become important. However, even though there's only 3 cameras, switching through them quickly can prove to be quite nerve-wracking. You cannot click any camera at any time. You can only move to cameras adjacent to the camera you're currently on, which means if you're on camera 1 and want to get to camera 3, you will first have to click on camera 2. Typically, this wouldn't be an issue, but you have to wait for a static animation to play each time you switch a camera before you can switch it again. Sure, the animation itself isn't very long, but when you have to switch as much as you do, that time will quickly add up. Overall, this is more of a nitpick than anything, but it is something I noticed during my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black. The post-night 4 minigame is a little bit weird. We play as the ghost we saw at the end of the post-night 2 minigame. We walk around the building, talking to children and guards, hearing messages like, "I blame you," and "How can we punish you?" Eventually, we find the body of another child. We say that we can restore it, and upon coming into contact, we get the message, "You must kill them for me."
Just one more to go. Once you left last night, I heard a strange tumbling noise outside. It was metallic and heavy. I don't know what it was, but it may be coming for you this time. Nothing rings a bell, but every time I heard some alarm, it would scamper. I don't think whatever it was likes noise. You have something to play noise? Yes. Please use that to keep yourself safe, but only if it sounds like it's coming close. Using noise at the wrong time may cost you.
You better get me out of here ASAP! I'm done playing these games. If it weren't for that guy holding a pistol to my hand for telling you my information early, I would have been long gone. Get it together! I'm tired of talking to you. Then get on with it!
I heard some ruckus outside, friend. I recognized the weird noise pattern from the debugging process from upstairs. Someone was altering the mascot's code. I know this just because of my sister's curiosity. She brought back some pink robot from her workplace to show me how messed up her work environment was. That thing was tossed in the end. It couldn't move regardless, but the same debugging process intro pattern she used was similar to the one I heard upstairs last night. I can only assume that the two systems are related, most likely by the same manufacturer. All I know is that those old models never liked being looked at after some wear and tear. We flashed a light on the pink thing and it sparked a little. It was a very strange find indeed. Well, I hope you can use this information to your advantage tonight. Let's hope we can see the sun once more.
Night 5 introduces one final threat. I know guys, I've been lying constantly throughout this video, but I prefer to call it keeping you on your toes. The final threat introduced is Subject Model 3A, being another annoying character. He will wander around your cameras and you just have to make sure you're not looking at him. If you look at him for too long, I'm assuming you can guess what happens to you. Major bun pounding, salad tossing, you get it. Don't look at him. Overall, he really doesn't add anything new to the mix, really just making it more annoying to keep track of Busted. But if you can complete it, we'll move on to the final minigame. In this final minigame, we play as a child, walking around the restaurant following what appears to be the ghost of a child. We follow them into the back room where the first kid was killed and speak to one of the animatronics. They apologize for what they did to us, probably in reference to killing us. They said their chip made them do it and explained that someone else is pulling the strings and making the robots kill people. It ends off by telling us we will never see it again and to leave. Then the minigame comes to a close.
Andrew Vargas, it seems you have found your way. We cannot say we are surprised at your feat, especially considering your perseverance was quite equal to your past endeavors. You found your sources, exactly what you wanted. Though, did you ever think to look for more data you could use towards your search? The patients you have saved do not hold all of the information, but just enough for you to draw a plausible conclusion. Regardless of your intentions with the data you hold, your time here is over. You have what you came for, but do you feel empty with what you hold? That is a question that will be left in the air for you to grasp. For now, you may take your prized patients outside of this facility with you until you find your true desire and recollection. We thank you for playing our game.
I can't believe it! You did it? I'm free from this place? Oh, I must tell you what I know. Well, okay, I was a producer for one of the most popular animatronic performer shows a few years back. I was vital, but I got to the point where I knew too much, and that is how I wound up here. This man was someone I used to work with. He created these things for his own entertainment business, but he eventually took it too far. He created a powerful computer to control all of his creations from a distance, with whatever behavior he wanted. He always left his plans on his work desk, but one day he felt like something was off. Some grew suspicious of his projects, myself included, but I never took it as far as this one group of people. They were dedicated to finding his grand computer. They went as far as setting up hidden cameras around the building to track anything they could, anything that could leave a trace back to its whereabouts. But they never found it, because the man attacked and killed one of them. I saw it on old discarded footage. That is all I know. I hope this helps you.
It took you long enough? Let's make this conversation quick. I was one of the construction employees set to renovate the supply and storage facility for future use. It was gonna be under some childish name like Busters, I think. I was the only one that showed up to the job early, like always. I got to one of the storage trucks I left outside, and that's where my life took a turn. They had a rotting corpse and dismantled robots in that truck, man. A rotting corpse. You could never understand how disgusting that was to see face to face. Sucker fell right out of the truck too, like it was last in line. It was in some blue wreck of a mascot suit. It had a camera stuffed in its mouth. It was horrible. I think you get it now. I went to go get my bag and quit my job, but some gray thing grabbed me and pulled me deeper into that building. Next thing you know, I was dangling for my life. Awesome, right? Well, it pulled me past some satellite. It was covered in those dumb white masks you've seen. The same one the guy is wearing. It's all some weird gimmick. But I know what that gimmick is for. That satellite was being used to get that white rabbit robot back from the depths of the forest, right off of Brickview Boulevard. It had to have been made for that. I'm no fool. I knew about that white monster rumor, and I even went hunting for it one time with the boys. It has to be linked. That's all I got for you. We better not come into contact like this again.
I have to owe you something for your determination, my friend. I'm honored. Oh, right, I do owe you something. I have something to tell you. Before this, I was an aspiring mechanical engineer. Machines have always enticed me, so I had been studying it for months prior to this incident. As you know, my sister had worked at that old supply and storage facility years ago. She was my main inspiration for this interest of mine. That night, when she came home with that pink robot, changed everything for me. We dug into the hardware of the robot ourselves. Our father had some spare tools in the garage, so we didn't have to rip into it to damage the thing even worse. We found a lot of weird oddities. One of the most obvious ones was its back. It had the tips of endoskeleton fingers buried in the suit piece, like it was torn apart by one of its own. Another one was its eye. We found a serial number printed in a fine black font face in the back of the eyelids, but it only routed to a 404 page on our home computer. Lastly, it had a code written on the inside of each of the suit parts. It read Model Pound 3C. I don't know the significance of the C. Maybe it was part of a trio, unless there are models with parts 3D or more. We extracted the chip from the robot, though. It was in a very rough condition, but it was somewhat intact. It even had a USB slot in it, which was extremely new at the time. We plugged the cord into our home computer, but it pulled up a ton of strange prompts. We clicked through all of them and found a folder with many text files inside of it. A lot of it was just a garbled mess, but some had what seemed to be addresses. They were impossible for us to decipher fully. Was this animatronic generation holding locations? That's the strange part. What's even more strange is that it had a file named task.txt amongst all the other distorted file names. We opened it, but for some reason the USB had ejected itself. We tried plugging it back into the computer, but it wouldn't pick it up again. All I was able to see before it disconnected was something along the lines of, "He must see what I have done, and maybe he will realize he should have stayed by my side. I know what I'm doing." That's all that I know, friend. See you on the other side.
Project Readjusted's story doesn't throw the answers at you. It gives you pieces, conversations, job descriptions, weird one-liners, and you're meant to piece together what was really happening behind the walls of Buster's Diner World. But once you line everything up, the picture is pretty clear. Two employees start a project they don't fully understand. It gets out of control, and one of them ends up paying the price for it. It all starts after Buster shuts down. The public thinks the place is done, the animatronics are boxed up, and everyone has moved on. But Diner World Entertainment hasn't. They're still in the building, still tinkering, and still trying to push something forward. Something they only ever call the project. And at the center of it are two people, Andrew Vargas and his coworker, Matthew. The two are exploring the closed building long after hours, checking the animatronics, looking through old hardware, and trying to locate something hidden deep inside the cast. Something the company wants extremely badly. A special chip connected to a hostile presence in the animatronics. They can't pull it out safely, they can't study it while it's roaming, and they can't risk handling it directly. So their entire plan is built around one thing: lure the entity into range, pull the chip, replace it, and get out. But they can't do it themselves. They need someone to sit in the office every night, act like a regular night guard, and unintentionally draw the animatronics towards them so Andrew and Matthew can track the patterns. That's where Hayden comes in. On paper, Hayden is just watching the cameras for 6 short nights. In reality, he's bait. Everything he sees, Buster, Glancer, Redeemer, all of it is part of a larger plan to drag this thing out. And for the most part, the plan works. The animatronics are active, the patterns are recorded, the project moves into its second stage. But then something happens that completely derails Matthew. Someone else breaks into the building. A man who isn't supposed to be there. Someone snooping around who gets far too close to whatever Andrew and Matthew are doing. The fandom calls him the spy, and Matthew panics. Instead of letting their secret get out, he kills the intruder. Not an accident, a choice. And it's the moment everything changes. Andrew is horrified, Matthew goes quiet, and from that point on, the two of them aren't on the same page anymore. Not long after that, Matthew disappears. No goodbye, no confession, no explanation. He's just gone. And Andrew is left with two things: a project he no longer trusts, and a friend who might have destroyed himself trying to finish it. When Project Readjusted 2 begins, we're not playing as Hayden anymore. We're someone closer to the company, a technician finishing their final assignment for Diner World Entertainment. This job isn't about survival, it's about data. Watching animatronic behavior, tracking motion patterns, feeding information back into whatever the project is turning into. And in the background of all of this, someone, heavily implied to be Andrew, keeps repeating the same thoughts. He's been gone for so long. I need answers. Where did he go? The entire game feels like Andrew trying to keep the company satisfied while quietly searching for any clue about Matthew's disappearance. Meanwhile, the animatronics are no longer just mascots. They're infested, corrupted, wired shut, and torn open. The prototypes that were experimented on long after Buster's closed. The project has clearly moved forward, and whatever they pulled from those animatronics is now being pushed into something else, something bigger, something human. And Andrew eventually gets the lead he's been waiting for, something that points away from Buster's, away from the diner entirely, and into a new location, a facility the company is tied to, a place where living subjects are being kept alive for testing. And to follow this trial, Andrew makes a deal, a job offer he can't refuse, something that promises answers about Matthew at a cost. That's where Project Readjusted 3 picks up. Andrew is now inside this medical facility, sitting in a monitoring booth, watching over patients who can't leave their rooms. His job is to keep them alive by sending supplies down long, empty hallways, making sure they don't lose consciousness, and trying not to get killed by something stalking him in the dark. A twisted, hulking version of Buster that shouldn't even exist in a place like this. But the deeper Andrew goes, the more obvious it becomes that this facility is just the project's final phase. The animatronics were only the beginning. The chip, the patterns, the experiments. All of it was leading to human testing. And somewhere inside this building, one of the patients isn't just another victim. He's the thing Andrew has been searching for since the moment Matthew vanished. Matthew didn't run. He didn't escape. He didn't move on. He was taken. Absorbed into the same project he helped build. In Project Readjusted 3, Matthew is the subjected member, a living test subject altered by the very experiments he and Andrew once tried to control. And that's the real truth behind Project Readjusted. A company digs up something dangerous hidden inside their animatronics. 2 employees tried to pull off a secret extraction, someone dies, one of them vanishes, and years later the entire operation has grown into a human experimentation program, with Matthew trapped at the center of it, and Andrew desperately trying to undo the damage. This game never spells everything out, and the dev has even said the full story was never completely written down, but from what everything we do see, the trilogy comes down to a single idea. They started the project together, Andrew survived it, Matthew didn't. But as far as I could gather and as far as I'm aware, that's all Project Readjusted has to offer. The Five Nights at Freddy's formula. Arguably what defines a FNAF game in the genre of a FNAF game. You're stuck in a small space, you can't move, and several threats are trying to eliminate you as you use a small amount of tools to defend yourself for an arbitrary amount of time. This, in a nutshell, is Five Nights at Freddy's as a genre. However, there are some Five Nights at Freddy's fan games that don't follow this formula, and if it wasn't for the use of the characters from the original game, you would have no idea that they were even FNAF games to begin with. And maybe you can think of a few games like this. The game I'll be covering today is another one of those games. A game so unique, so good, that if it didn't use official FNAF characters, it could easily be its own fantastic survival horror experience. So sit back, strap in, and join me today as we cover Fredbear and Friends Reboot. You can honestly think about Fredbear and Friends Reboot as more of an Outlast, Resident Evil, or Poppy Playtime style game, purely in terms of how it plays. It's a story-based, free-roam survival horror game, except it uses characters and settings from the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, and it's honestly super cool. We play as a guy named Thomas. When this game takes place, the Fredbear and Friends restaurant had been closed for over 26 years, and together with our friends Chris, Ashley, and Richard, they all decided it'd be a great idea to do some urban exploring in the now abandoned building, not knowing that they were about to walk into a sick and sadistic death trap, the likes of which they'd never experienced before. We drive to the restaurant where all of our friends are waiting and head inside to find them. We all talk about what the plan is, and it seems like they don't even fucking have one. So like, why are we even here? No matter, we decide to all split up like Scooby and the gang to explore faster, something I would never agree to do because this building is so dark I can barely see 10 feet in front of me. So, to solve the darkness problem, Richard finds the power room as we enter the office of the building. Successfully turning the power on, I ask the question, is it even possible for a building 26 years abandoned to even be able to have power? That's a genuine question, by the way. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but like, who's paying that bill? The city? I have no idea. After having our fun in the office, we meet back up with our bald friend Chris. I know being bald isn't a crucial plot point, but a plot point I found relevant to point out. Like, imagine being bald. Couldn't be me. I have luscious locks. Bald bitch, loser bitch, boy, loser bitch. Chris tells us he wants to continue exploring to find out more about this place, which I call bullshit on because this bald loser is sitting down and is actually not exploring a damn thing. Heading back to the office, we find 2 documents for Chris since he's too lazy to go look for himself. One of the documents mentions the animatronics acting up, and the other talks about an armed man in a purple suit. I wonder who that could possibly be. We go back to where Chris was, only to find him missing. After exploring around, we realize we can't find Richard or Ashley either. We hear a voice in the distance yelling to get away, and later hear what sounds like Richard getting attacked.
What the fuck?
We decide to say fuck our friends and run to the exit, only to find that the door is somehow locked. We decide we need to go hide in the office since there's a door we can close to keep ourselves safe. As we run down the hallway, we run into Chris. Relieved, we go to greet him, only to watch him get snatched from something hiding in the vent on the ceiling, pulling him up into the ceiling and tearing him apart.
Yeah, not this way though, not fucking that way, no we ain't.
We obviously turn around and go to the other entrance of the office since I'm not about to get ganked like Chris just did. As we go to the other hallway, we can hear loud metallic footsteps following behind us. We quickly hide under the desk and hope that whatever is following us is retarded. We watch as a crooked spring Bonnie limps through the office, unaware of our location. We come back up only to hear a ring of the phone on the desk. We answer the phone to be greeted by some douchebag using voice mod like those guys that go on Valorant to flirt with any female over the age of 10.
If you want to survive, listen very closely.
He tells us how to survive each of the 8 animatronics. The fucking 8 goddamn cock-sucking animatronics. My god, that is a lot. I'm not going to explain every single animatronic at the same time right now because that would be boring as fuck. And trust me, this phone call was also boring as fuck. The big thing that we're told is that Fredbear is scary, and he's the reason why one of the doors to the office is broken. So fantastic, we have a door that doesn't work. What exactly are we supposed to do? I have no idea. I have no direction whatsoever aside from let's go see if I can break the exit door down. But before we can try anything, we're forced to listen to a cutscene while there are 8 hungry robots whose mouths begin to water whenever they smell my gooch. During this cutscene, we're put into the perspective of a mechanic named Simon. We're told that we have to go into the Fredbear's building to fix some of the robots because the customers reported them to be acting aggressive. So we can gauge that this cutscene obviously takes place before the shutdown. After this cutscene, we're actually put into the perspective of this mechanic as we head inside the building to solve the problem at 5 in the morning because as an engineer, we're on call all the time, yet still get paid like dog shit and are still expected to just wake up and travel at any time, even for the smallest of reasons that could 100% wait until my fucking shift starts. But alright, let's go I guess. As we enter the building, we notice the animatronics are on for some reason, and they shouldn't be at night. We figure somebody just forgot to shut them off, so we go to the employees' room to flip the switch to power them off to take a look at them. After grabbing the key from the office and heading inside, we find that the power lever for the robots is actually already off, yet for some reason, the characters are still on. We decide to just manually shut them off to work on them instead. So we walk to the stage, reach up to turn off Spring Freddy, only to get that Soulja Boy cranked on us and get knocked the fuck out by a guy who I can only assume to be the guy we heard on the phone. We come back to playing as Thomas again, and are tasked with obviously finding a way to get the exit door unlocked. We find a key to the bathroom on the office shelf and head down the hall to go inside. Inside of the bathroom, we find a hammer that we hope we can use to break the lock on the exit door. However, as we exit the bathroom, we see the non-attractive, fat-ass version of Chica heading in our direction, so we quickly jump inside of one of the stalls to hide. We hold our breath as Chica passes by and quickly run out to the exit door. We break the handle to the door and open it, seeing the final exit door. We don't get far before Foxy jumps out at us for some fucking reason. This door was locked? Why the hell was Foxy on the other side of it? Oh well, what the fuck ever. It's a little bit more important right now that we run away from the murder robot behind us. We run back to the employee room and hide behind a shelf. Foxy walks inside, but before he can find us, he hears a noise coming from the door inside of the room. Opening it, he finds who I can only assume to be Richard and jumps him like he's in Detroit. We take this chance to book it back to the exit. As we run, we hear Richard getting torn apart, screaming. We get to the door just in time, and Jesus fucking Christ, the door is gone? What the fuck? Let's ignore the fact that this doesn't make sense, because I don't think I need to explain to you why a door disappearing doesn't make sense. We turn around to see a certain large twitching bear. He just screams in our face and disappears, clearly being a hallucination. We figure there's no better time than the present to find another exit. As we walk into the main party room, so does Spring Bonnie. And now's the time where I can talk about how he works. Spring Bonnie is as basic as it gets when it comes to a survival horror character. He patrols around the building, and if you get too close to him in his line of sight, he'll start chasing you, and he won't stop chasing you until he kills you. And there's also no chance you're going to outrun him. The only way to get him to stop chasing you without dying is to lure him to the side of the office with a door and close it. But you also really have to be careful with how you close this door, because it doesn't work how any normal FNAF door would. It only stays closed for about 2 seconds, so make sure you time this properly.
Nope. Oh! I closed it! I fucking closed it! I fucking closed it! I fucking closed it! I'm dead. I'm dead as shit.
If you do, Spring Bonnie should be teleported to a different room in the building. We maneuver our way around Spring Bonnie and eventually make it to the other exit of the building, only to find that the door is missing too. Isn't life just so awesome sometimes? It's at this moment we hear Richard scream, which confuses me because I thought Richard just got killed by Foxy. So if who we heard just now was Richard, then who did Foxy just kill? It couldn't have been Chris, because we saw Chris get killed by the fucker in the vents. It also couldn't be Ashley, because it was 100% the scream of a man. And it can't be the engineer, because he entered the building in that cutscene 26 or more years ago. This is not important at all, so let's actually continue talking about what's happening, shall we? We head back to the office where we heard the scream, only to find nobody there. We figure for some reason we should go back to the employee room. Why? Ask Shitlips Thomas, because I can't figure out a good reason to go back there, but apparently he's the FNAF expert, and not me. Before we can continue, we get another engineer cutscene. We're dragged into a back room and we overhear 2 people talking. Well, really only one person talking, because the other guy has his voice changer on so deep thinking it'll make the e-girls wet, so I really can't even hear him.
Why didn't you just kill him? Really? Dave, you know exactly what happened before.
The voice I can hear sounds suspiciously like the guy on the phone who called us here at 5 in the fucking morning. He tells voice changer guy that he should just kill us so we don't get away like the other engineer and spread the word about what they're doing. After not doing it, the phone guy decides to just do it himself, so he enters the room and stabs us to death. Fantastic. I really shouldn't have lived in Chicago. Everyone in Chicago gets stabbed. Going back to the employee room, we find the corpse of a police officer. Seeing that his radio had been taken, we now know that whoever is behind this really knows what they're doing. But we figure that because a police officer went missing, that other officers will be arriving at some point to look for him. So knowing all we have to do is survive, this game's most agonizing survival section finally begins. And I get to explain what all of the characters do in grueling detail, because they're all laid on us at the exact same time, and we're just supposed to remember what they all do from the 2-minute phone call we got 15 minutes ago. Hooray. Alright, well, the goal is easy. Just survive until 6 AM without getting found by any of the animatronics. Sounds simple enough. All we have to do is track all of their movements and learn their patterns, and then find a spot in the massive 3D environment where none of the characters ever have a line of sight to, right? Almost, but not really, because one main character. Bonnie. Bonnie is this game's way of preventing you from doing exactly that. On certain time intervals, Bonnie will emerge from the room where the puppet is. Yes, by the way, the puppet is in this game. Don't think too much about it. There are a lot of characters from a lot of different FNAF time periods in this game, so just shut up. Anyways, Bonnie will exit this room and make his way to the employee room to turn the puppet control lever on. Once it's on, the puppet will begin moving on a track across the ceiling that leads to a door which has some chains on it. Why are there chains on this door? Well, it's to hold back and stop the big bastard himself, Fredbear. If the puppet makes it all the way to this door, it will break it down and allow Fredbear to come out. And spoiler alert, Fredbear always knows where you are, and if he gets out, you will 100% die, because as mentioned earlier, he doesn't care about the doors, and he is faster than you are. So, all you have to do to prevent this from happening is go into the employee room and turn off the puppet control lever whenever Bonnie turns it on. This leads to you needing to be moving around pretty consistently throughout this night. Why do that when you could just hide right outside of this room, or maybe even inside of it? Well, that's where Spring Bonnie comes back in. Spring Bonnie, and in fact every character during this section, has a very specific movement pattern that they will walk in. And thank God they do, because memorizing these patterns is the only reason I ever completed this section. Spring Bonnie has the habit of walking into literally every single room in the building, and his line of sight is really large, so you will have to always maneuver around him. Also, if that wasn't awesome enough, with every hour that passes during this section, each animatronic will become more and more agile, which really just means their line of sight increases. Chica is the next character I want to quickly mention, and she is pretty boring as a character. She's just Spring Bonnie, except her path doesn't cover as much ground as his does. Her line of sight also appears to be a lot smaller than his, so that's good news, I suppose. She does go through the main party room a bit during her cycle, and that will become important later when I go over my amazing strategy. Let's cover Freddy next, as he will probably cause you the least amount of issues out of every character in this game. Freddy will randomly spawn in random rooms, typically next to the doorways. All you have to do is not walk directly into him. He won't chase you, but if you get too close, he'll instantly kill you. So really just make sure you're watching where you're going. Mangle isn't that terrible either. Side note, I know its name in the game isn't actually Mangle, but fuck you. It looks just like her, and it crawls through the fucking vents like Mangle, so I'm calling it Mangle. Mangle is also the one that killed Chris in that cutscene earlier too, by the way. Mangle is also incredibly easy to deal with. On the floors and ceilings of certain rooms, there will be large vents. Occasionally, you may notice wires coming out from those vents. That means that Mangle is waiting there, and if you walk by, she'll snatch you up. So once again, just like Freddy, open your eyes and you'll be just fine. Foxy is the only real problem during this night, as he's a random character with no pathing, and is also super easy to forget about. Foxy has the chance to be hiding behind any doorway at any time. The only way to tell if he's there is by standing next to the doorway and listening for quiet breathing. For some reason, you can't just move to one side of the door and check if he's standing there, since you literally can't see him even if he is there, which is something I died to in my playthrough, and you can see that over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. That's really all of the problems to worry about during this night, but Bonnie is obviously the most dangerous. So, how should you go about pulling this off? Well, when this game first came out, there was a super awesome glitch you could use to cheese this entire section. If you remember where we hid from Foxy during a cutscene, you used to be able to hide in the exact same spot, and both Bonnie and Spring Bonnie, aka the only characters that enter the employee room, wouldn't be able to see you hiding there. And since it's in the employee room, it was right next to the puppet control switch, so you could beat the entire section just by standing in one spot. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get the luxury of being able to do that, as in the newer version of this game, during this section only, an invisible wall is placed there to block your path. So I had to play the legitimate way. This is when I started to develop my strategy. I'm gonna be so real with you, it took me about 45 minutes to complete this section. I am complete ass at these types of games, which is why I never play them. I personally really dislike the mechanic of every enemy is patrolling randomly and will chase you when seen, but you also have a bunch of bullshit to do at the same time. I know it's a common mechanic, but it's just never something I was able to get into. Mainly because I don't take being chased very well at all, so it just kind of gives me a lot of anxiety. Here's how this section can be beaten 100% of the time for anyone who struggles with things like this, like I do. I came up with this myself. I'm super proud of myself. I did no walkthrough because I'm the best. The first step is to run out of the employee room as fast as you can and get to the far corner of the main party room to the left of the main stage. You have to be fast because Spring Bonnie will enter this room quickly after. While in this corner, both Spring Bonnie and Bonnie will never be able to see you, which is huge since this location also gives you an easy view of both of them since they enter through the door on your left. Once in this corner, Spring Bonnie will soon pass by. After a while, Bonnie will enter the room. Bonnie is slow as shit, so this will take a while. But once you see him, you can start following him. Bonnie doesn't care so much about killing you as he does flipping the puppet switch, so you can actually get pretty close behind him. Creep, 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 creep. That's the sound I make. Creep, creep, creep. You gotta match your steps with his, bro. Boom, 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 boom. All good. But obviously, if you get too close, he'll still kill you. Once Bonnie leaves the main party room to enter the hallway, Spring Bonnie should be up near the office, so you don't have to worry about him. Take the time it takes for Bonnie to enter the employee room and flip the switch to stand by the doorway to listen for Foxy. Once Bonnie flips the switch, quickly enter the employee room and turn it off. After Bonnie flips the switch, he will exit the room through a door you can't even open, so you don't have to worry about him turning around. After flipping the switch, you want to run back to the main party room. At this point, Chica should be inside. She will walk around the tables and exit the room through the door that both Bonnies enter through. Simply be slow and follow her. Once she leaves the room, go back into the far left corner again. This is now going to begin the second cycle. This time, since the paths that Bonnie and Spring Bonnie take are much different in length, they will be a lot closer together. Bonnie will enter the room first this time, with Spring Bonnie directly behind him. Once Spring Bonnie goes up and around the tables, you can start slowly following Bonnie. At this point, you'll have to be patient, since Spring Bonnie will enter the entrance room, then travel back into the party room, and then go into the hall to the employee room. Then we'll travel to the office. So you will hear Bonnie flip the switch, and you will have to wait probably 30 to 45 seconds before you can switch it back, because if you're too fast, Spring Bonnie will see you. If you sneak past him while he's in the entrance room, it appears that Foxy will always be behind the door to the hallway and you will die. So it's your best bet to just wait for Spring Bonnie to finish this cycle and start walking to the office. I recommend waiting directly in front of the stage during this section since he won't be able to see you. Once he goes down the hall, quickly run into the employee room and flip the switch. Then quickly run back into the party room and go right into the exit doorway. Chica will be entering the party room at this point, and if you're any closer to the stage, she will see you. Once she walks around the tables, once again, you can follow her out and go back to the hiding spot in the far left corner. Now, the third cycle gets a little bit scary, so be ready. Bonnie will soon enter the room again, with Spring Bonnie fairly close behind. However, there is enough room between Bonnie and Spring Bonnie for you to be able to get in between them. Closely follow behind Bonnie and Spring Bonnie will enter the party room. Continue to follow Bonnie into the employee room and shut the switch off immediately after Bonnie turns it on. Immediately run back to the entrance of the party room. At this point, Spring Bonnie should be walking into the exit room. You can take this small window of time to run to the front of the stage. Spring Bonnie will enter the hallway, and once he does, you're safe to go back to the exit doorway. Since Spring Bonnie is near the office, you don't need to go back to the corner. In fact, you actually shouldn't, because Chica will follow behind Bonnie. Bonnie will once again pass you, and you can once again follow him into the employee room and shut the switch. After flipping this switch, this final time, you're home free. Simply sit in the employee room and this nightmare of a section will come to an end. And the best part is, since the movement of almost all of the characters is scripted, you'll be able to use this method to beat this section of the game every single time without fail. I hope you enjoyed this overtly long explanation section. It's easily what took me the longest to do while playing this game, so I figured I should devote a long time in the script talking about it. Let me know what you think. After beating this section, we get a cutscene where we're running down the hallway, being chased by Spring Bonnie. We get into the office and close the door on him, which literally cuts the fucker in half. I love this. This is peak. Absolute cinema. As we turn around, Foxy charges at us, but luckily the animatronic power gets shut off and Foxy shuts down right in front of us. Walking down the broken doors hallway, we see a deactivated Freddy, and Chica tries to kill us, only to get powered off at the same time, which actually scared me in my playthrough, which you can find on my second channel, Dxtr Black. We continue to explore the now eerily quiet building. Going back to the exit, we fall to our knees, only for a door to appear in front of us, locked by a code. A voice comes over the intercoms that sounds weirdly like the guy that killed the engineer in a previous cutscene. He tells us that he's impressed by our work and that the animatronics we faced thus far will be deactivated for the remainder of our stay, aside from 2, who he calls his favorites. It's now up to us to figure out the code. We find a piece of paper on the wall that says "Find me." Not totally sure what the hell that means. We wander around into the puppet room where we find writing on the wall saying "It's me." Next to this message, we find another piece of paper saying, "My back is to the corner." After reading this note, the 2 threats of this section activate: Fredbear and Mangle. Again, Mangle acts a bit differently, so let's talk about her first. This time, she's no longer in the vents. She's walking around the building. If she sees you, she'll roar like a dinosaur. And if you don't get out of her line of sight in 4 seconds, she'll start chasing you. And she won't stop until she catches you. So just like, run, I guess, bozo. Fredbear, on the other hand, should be scary, but because of an item we got at the beginning of this segment, he really isn't. At the start of this section, we're given a taser. Fredbear will always know where you are and will constantly be crip walking towards you, except Fredbear while walking is very slow, so you can easily stay away from him. Every once in a while, he will also roar for some reason, and will then begin to charge at you. While he's charging, he will be faster than you, but when he gets close, use your taser to stun him and he'll go back to walking. So avoiding the threats on this segment is honestly a cakewalk compared to what we had to deal with during the last section. Now, I had a stroke trying to figure out what "my back is to the corner" meant. What you have to do is find Freddy, since his back is to the corner of the wall. Except not really, because his back is just to the wall, not really the corner. Regardless, on his back is another note stating camera 2. I've neglected to mention the cameras thus far, but that's because they're literally completely useless for the most part. Throughout the building, there are several monitor stands where you can place your monitor, because I guess you can't just hold a fucking iPad with your hands. You instead need a holder like a toddler who blares annoying ass YouTube videos while in a public restaurant, and the parents just find nothing wrong with that since they'd rather have the internet raise them instead of them. Anyways, when you place the monitor down, you can look at the cameras. Big whoop. Using your eyes is better in a game like this because you can walk around freely. Regardless, looking at camera 2 now, we find another message saying, "I'm here." Going to the location of camera 2, you'll find another note saying, "Look up." On the ceiling, you'll find the number 7 and yet another note reading "Inside my head." What this means, if you weren't a genius like me, is that you have to go to Foxy in the office and look in his mouth. Inside, you'll find the number 3 and another note reading "Behind a curtain." Now, there are 3 curtains in this building, and you have to look at each of them in a specific order, which is dumb because all you're doing is looking behind them. Behind the last curtain, you'll see the number 7, and then some text reading "The safest place" will start flashing on your screen. Let's pause. I really don't understand why it wasn't just another note. This is supposed to be like an escape room set up by the guy that locked us in here. How the fuck was he able to make us hallucinate a phrase? I don't know. Let's move on. The safest place refers to the office. Going back to the office, we find another note reading the second digit. Obviously, the second digit is the number 3, as it's the second digit we found on this little scavenger hunt. Finally, going back to the exit door, we can type in the code 6373. Fun fact, by the way, you can actually just type in this code at the start of this section if you don't want to go through all the bullshit I just explained, because there's no check here to see if you have or not. But after punching in the code, the door disappears. Opening another door that it was covering leads to another room with no fucking door. Falling to our knees again, all of a sudden the door reappears for some reason, and a bunch of police officers barge in past us, and we're taken out of the building to safety. After being rescued, we're shown a cutscene where Thomas is either being interviewed by police or is in a therapy session. I can't quite tell which one is correct. He freaks out about his friends being killed and then realizes he never heard anything from Ashley. No screams, no body found, nothing. This makes him tweak like when I'm in line at the grocery store and some 40-year-old mom pulls out her own grocery bags to save the environment. You want to know what I do when I see someone using their own bags in the grocery store? When it's my turn in line, I tell the bagger, hey, all my shit, double bag it. Anyways, after this cutscene, we're thrown into the credits. But that's not where this game comes to an end. We actually get a post-credit scene like it's a Marvel movie, where Thomas is in his room. He wakes up in the middle of the night and looks out his window, only to see the silhouette of an animatronic we never saw in the pizzeria staring back at him. And finally, Fredbear and Friends reboot comes to a close. Overall, I think this game was a super enjoyable experience. Did I get overtly frustrated and almost give up while playing the survival section? Yes, but I beat it, and I'm glad I did. The story to this game is simple and nice. There's no retarded digging that we have to do to learn the simplest things like a fucking name of a character, Scott, asshole. We're instead just given a story the way it should be given. A few mysteries here and there, but nothing so overtly frustrating that it makes it not fun to figure out. The game looks gorgeous, it plays well when you understand what you're doing, and overall I would highly recommend you give it a go. Obviously, from the teaser we saw at the end of the game, a second game was clearly in the works. But with no updates for several years, and it being confirmed that at some point the game's development was put on halt, and given the fact that this game came out 7 years ago, I don't think it's very likely we'll see Chapter 2 anytime soon. But hey, only time will tell. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this game was actually doo-doo ass rank?
When I'm looking for FNAF games to cover, I usually look for a few baseline things, a few bare minimums. However, I do also look for games that have a bit of a goofy aspect to them. For example, the fact that Five Nights to Remember literally has Gooner bait built into it. I think stuff like that is pretty funny, so it's definitely something I look for when determining which games are going to get a Dxtr White video. The game I've played recently started fairly normal with a gameplay loop I enjoyed. However, near the end, something happened that was so completely out of left field, I was at a loss for words. What the fuck am I looking at? What the fuck? I'm very excited to talk about this game as I had a very fun time playing. So sit back and enjoy the ride as we dive nuts first into Animatronic Memories. Animatronic Memories starts as many official FNAF games do, that being showing a newspaper clipping asking for a security guard to monitor the building at night. Excited, jumping for joy, and kicking our feet and shit, we accept the offer and start our first night on the job. Entering our new office, we look around and notice that this place is clearly not very normal. Able to look in 3 directions, directly in front of us we have our computer, which lets us view our cameras. To our right we see the door to our office, and to the left we have a large window. Something I've never really understood about some buildings is why they have windows to other rooms in the building. I'm no architect, but that just doesn't really make sense. I don't know what possible purpose it could realistically serve. Also, this one has a fucking door on it. Fantastic. This game doesn't use a power system. Side note, I am so glad more FNAF games are choosing to move away from the power mechanic. I personally never found it very enjoyable, so I appreciate that many games are choosing to remove it so that your strategy can focus more on nerve control and skill rather than balancing a number. In a game where my only 3 actions are checking lights, closing doors, and watching cameras, boy do I sure love it when a central gameplay mechanic is limiting how much of those actions I'm allowed to do. It's so much fun. But anyways, since this game doesn't use power and there are 2 doors, I was curious how this game would pull that off. Let's begin with the window door. This one is very easy. If you're not holding the door down manually, it will automatically rise. Simple. Now let's turn our attention to the much more interesting door, the one that's actually a door. This door, you'll notice, has 3 fuses that connect to it. Just like Five Nights at Candy's, the longer you have a door closed, the higher the meter beneath it will rise. But unlike Candy's, this game actually used the mechanic in a much better way. If your meter is to increase fully, one of your fuses will break and the meter will reset. If you lose all 3 fuses, you will no longer be able to close the door, and the animatronics will very quickly close the gap on you and very quickly close your mouth so you don't make too much noise when they're obliterating your guts like iDubbbz obliterates his reputation. And that's really all you need to know to be able to play this game. All the mechanics are incredibly simple, which I think a lot of people could agree with me when I say that's a breath of fresh air, especially when it seems like every new FNAF release is just trying their best to get on the max mode list. But anyways, on to the threats that this night introduces, that being Bonnie and Chica. Let's pause for a moment. I want to really take the time to appreciate these character designs. Not only are they creepy, not only are they gorgeous, but they're also extremely uncanny. Looking at these characters just makes me uncomfortable in a very unique way. Especially Chica, like fucking ew. Anyways, let's start with Bonnie. Bonnie does exactly what you'd expect him to. He starts on the show stage, randomly walks around the cameras, and eventually lands at your door. Which again, with the way these characters look, it's just really fucking uncomfortable looking, which I love. All you need to do is close the door, and you're a-okay. He'll pound on the door, and you can reopen it. Chica is much the same, except she's fatter. Since these two are really just here to teach you the basics, beating the night is very easy. But before we can move on to night 2, we get the pleasure of talking about the very neat post-night minigames. After each night, we get to play a repairing minigame. I will say, technically speaking, these aren't really games at all, more just a holding down the mouse simulator, but I love little extra things like this. I would have enjoyed them in a game like Jolly as well, but unfortunately for that game, especially Jolly 3 Chapter 1, the minigames there take so fucking long, I'd rather rip out my own catheter than ever play them. However, in this game, they're short, sweet, and pretty fun for what they are. We're always tasked with replacing a piece of whatever animatronic is given to us. On night 1, that's Bonnie. The challenge of these nights, if you can even call it a challenge, come in the form of the character behind us, a ratchet-ass looking female balloon boy who probably has a clussy. What the fuck? Holy fuck! Throughout the minigame, you will hear her making noises behind you, slowly inching closer and closer. When she gets too close, you'll have to quickly whip around and fucking tase her, which I think is just awesome. Afterwards, she'll back up off you, and the cycle continues. Overall, not too difficult, but something extra that I think adds some spice to the game. Something you'll notice about the night sections is that they feel a lot shorter than most FNAF games, and that's because they are. But where the game lacks in length of night segments, it totally makes up for in the form of its 8-bit minigames. Usually, I fucking hate these, but I actually don't mind the minigames found here. Let's go over the post-night 1 8-bit minigame. The purpose of these minigames is exactly what you'd think, that being introducing lore and of course sliding in some secrets that allow for a different ending. This game only has 2 of those, thankfully, so I'll be going over the process of getting the true ending right now because no shit. In the first minigame, you play as Freddy. It seems that throughout these minigames, all the characters are preparing for a party. In each minigame, whichever character you play as will have a different task to complete. Freddy's task is being a fat lazy fuck and just talking to the other characters. Wow, Freddy, you're really taking pages out of your toy counterpart's book, huh? Fat lazy piece of shit. Yeah, watch all your coworkers do the work and still take the credit at the end, dick. Anyways, completing the task is obviously not what's important in these minigames, as if you are to complete the tasks, the minigame will end and you won't be able to collect the secret item you need for the true ending. What you should really focus on doing is finding a glitched sprite somewhere around the building. Very similar to going into the glitched areas in FNAF World. For Freddy, the wall will be glitched between 2 tables at the bottom of the map. Touching this glitched area will bring you back to some black space Amori type shit. In this black space, all you have to do is find a Freddy plushie and bring it to one of the crying children. After doing so, you'll be met with a black and white animatic, in which you're in the POV of a kid entering a Fazbear location before getting lured into the back room by a man in a bunny costume. Fuck that molester, bro! Get him out! No, get that fucker out of here, bro. Oh my god. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, great. I think we all know where this is going. Moving on to night 2, which introduces one new threat. That being Freddy himself, the hulking, titanous, gargantuan-ass bear. He attacks the door exactly like Bonnie and Chica, except he does something even more cancerous. He will also attack your door, except he moves through cameras a lot faster than Bonnie and Chica do. And once he reaches your door, he'll enter a lot faster than them as well. Instead of jump scaring you, he does like Phone Guy says and gets a little bit quirky, choosing to reach his hand into your fuse box and immediately break all of them, then jump scare you. Now, as cool as that is, I do have to ask the question, if he kills you after doing this, then why doesn't he just kill you? Don't get me wrong, I love little details like this and I'm not necessarily complaining, but it's a genuine question. I'm assuming the dev just didn't want to have 3 characters appear to do the exact same thing, even though, to be fair, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy all end up doing the exact same thing, just at various speeds. This is something that could be attributed to laziness, but you have to answer whether you think it is for yourself, and I'll be talking about it a little bit later. Post Night 2 repair needs you to fix up Chica and her cupcake. Ew! Ew! Bro, this bitch is disgusting, dude. Again, this is much the same as the last one. Tootsie, which, yes, by the way, is that clown's name, is more aggressive, but it's still pretty easy to deal with. However, the Post Night 2 minigame is different, and that makes me excited, because, would you believe me if I said this, I will actually enjoy talking about the lore in this game. I know, crazy. Turns out, when I'm told a story where I don't have to spend a billion fucking hours searching for answers, that actually makes it fun. Anyways, in this minigame you play as Bonnie, and the goal of the minigame is to do some sweeping, aka manual labor, something Toy Freddy would avoid at all cost because he's unemployed. But fuck actually doing the task at hand, that's for retards. Instead, we're going to warp the fabric of space and time by touching a busted up table and be teleported directly to hell. Doesn't that sound way better than doing the everyday tasks of a customer service job? Awesome. Well, once you enter black space, all you need to do is find a Bonnie plush and once again give it to one of the crying children. Once again, afterwards we get a cutscene where we're in the POV of a child, this time being bullied by some fat-ass children. Have you guys ever realized that like every bully that's ever existed is about the size of a Ford F-150? Whatever. We get saved by the man in the bunny suit and then immediately get betrayed and murdered. That's right, kids. Not only can you not trust your peers, you can't trust adults either. I guess we should all just give up. Night 3 time. What's the new threat introduced here? And will it have a different mechanic than everything else we've seen so far? This night introduces a fan-made character, something I don't often see when fan games use the official characters. This character's name is Anne, a female Foxy equivalent. Give me Rule 34. What? Who said that? Anyways, she begins on the Pirate's Cove camera next to Foxy. She will, just like Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, move through phases on the camera until she's ready to attack. When she does, you'll be able to see her run off of the Pirate's Cove camera, wherein she will then book it to your window. When she arrives, you will have to quickly close it until you hear her leave. So, hey, something new, kind of, not really, it's just another door, but I guess that's better than nothing. Oh, did I mention Foxy also activates on this night? Well, he does. Wanna know what he does? Disappointingly, it's the exact same thing Anne does, just a lot slower. Isn't that weird? The fast-running Five Nights at Freddy's character is now slow. Like, I know he has a peg leg, so that's obviously making him move slowly, but like, goddamn, why'd you have to butcher my boy like that? He did not deserve it. But yes, as I've said, Foxy does the exact same thing Anne does. I will say that because they move at different speeds, there are some very rare instances where it can lead to some stress while watching their timings, but the odds of this happening are pretty slim, so you probably will never even experience it. That's honestly my biggest problem with this game. It looks amazing, I'm interested in the story, the sound design is fantastic, and you even managed to make me enjoy the 8-bit minigames. But this game has introduced 5 characters so far, and yet somehow, with 5 characters, there's only 2 mechanics to deal with all of them, and both of those mechanics are closing a door and waiting a few seconds. I've tried my best to think about how I can view this positively, but I really just can't.
Sure, I personally like it when FNAF games aren't too hard and I can beat them without too much strain, but I can easily see how this game's mechanics could be a turn-off for some people. There's just not enough happening to keep a lot of people interested. We have one character to talk about who switches up the mechanics a little bit, but I still don't even think that's enough, especially given the time this game was released, that being February of 2025. You might question my complaining of this. Dxtr, the original Five Nights at Freddy's, only had one mechanic, two if you're being generous and calling Foxy a different mechanic. And to that statement, I'd agree. However, there are 2 points that I have to give to that argument. Yes, FNAF 1 only had 2 mechanics, closing the door and stalling Foxy. However, the first thing you need to acknowledge is that Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was released in 2014 and was a pioneer of an entire genre. It has been 11 years since that game's release. I think it's reasonable to expect newer games in the same genre to have evolved, and for the most part, they totally have. Look at The Joy of Creation, Tycoon Sons Lumber Co., Showman's Awakening. All of these games have added so much to the central idea that is Five Nights at Freddy's. This game just doesn't do that. On top of that, let's dive a little bit deeper into Five Nights at Freddy's 1 for a moment. While yes, the only real mechanic in that game is closing the doors for defense, we need to talk about the synergy between Freddy and Foxy. Foxy requires you to look at your cameras to stall him. If you don't, while yes, you can close the door to keep him out, with every pound your door will lose power dramatically, which incentivizes you to look at him. It seems Scott saw a potential bore in this design, so he made Freddy work the same as the others, but with a twist to synergize. Freddy can't enter your office while your cameras are down, and he's the only animatronic that will never move backwards, meaning that once he's at your door, he will stay there. He's also the only door animatronic that will not break your buttons, so you don't have to close the door while you're in your office. However, on the contrary, he doesn't work the same way the other 2 door animatronics do. You can't see him when the light is on, and at the same time, Chica can be at your door while Freddy is also at it because of this. Because of this mechanic, it's very likely that Freddy will be at your door for most of the night, especially on nights 5 and 6. Since the game forces you to check your cameras to stall Foxy, this leads to you needing to close your door before you check the cameras to not have Freddy enter. This is a good synergy between 2 characters and is why I wouldn't complain about this in that game. In animatronic memories, however, there is no difference between characters that attack the same way like this. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica all do the exact same thing. Anne and Foxy also both do the exact same thing. Sure, Freddy may break your fuses first, but that doesn't change the fact that he's still doing the exact same thing. Just going to your door and killing you. He just happens to have an animation before that happens. Now, is this a bad thing? I think that's more up to a case-by-case basis. While yes, I do feel that it's boring, I still had plenty of fun playing this game and I would still recommend it to people. I just think it's obviously important to point out flaws like this when analyzing a game. Sorry about that tangent. Moving on to the repair minigame. In this one, we're asked with fixing up Freddy, who has some insane crow's feet. Like, holy shit, this guy's old as fuck. But this doesn't change anything from the last 2, so let's move on to the 8-bit minigame. In this minigame, we play as Chica, tasked with collecting ingredients for a cake. Shut the fuck up! I don't care about your bitch-ass task! Let's go to hell! Oh, but before we do that, I should mention that there's an endoskeleton that starts spawning, and if you touch it, you die. So, like, don't do that. Anyways, once we're back in black space, you once again have to get a plushie. This time, doing so is a bit different. You'll see several eyes on the floor. Interacting with them will cause them to close. Once you close all of them, the plushie will spawn and you can give it to the child. After doing so, we're shown another cutscene, this time in the POV of a child who wants a prize from the prize counter. The man in the bunny suit gives us a Chica plush before inviting us to the back room. Once inside, he stabs us, and the last thing we see is our Chica plushie on the floor as we bleed out. So that's sad.
Dude, that's fucking cool as shit, bro. That's cool. No, not her, please. Please don't ruin your game. Please don't do it, please. Please, I'm begging you, don't ruin your game. Don't add a music box. Please, 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 for the love of God, don't do it. Anyways, night 4 time.
This introduces Harley. What? Who the fuck is Harley? Well, the marionette, of course, duh. The marionette thankfully doesn't work in the way you think she does. No music box to wind because the developer of this game isn't Satan. The marionette has two different ways of attacking you, something I think is awesome. I think it's super cool when characters can do more than one thing, and I think it's something I'd like to see more often. Her first attack consists of her attempting to shut down the cameras. When she leaves her box, the camera has a chance to glitch. If it does, you have to quickly find her on one of the cameras and press a newly appearing sound disruption button to make her fuck off. The other option of attack is through your vent. I didn't even tell you guys that we had a vent because it's really never really important. Instead of glitching the cameras, when Harley leaves, she can make a bell noise as well. When you hear that, you will need to quickly check the kitchen camera and shock her ass, because once she enters it, you're gonna be completely done for, as there's no way to stop her once she enters. Oh hey, something new! Fortunately, sound cues were added so she's not completely AIDS, but if you can beat her, which shouldn't be too difficult, we move on to the repair section where we have to fix Foxy, who, holy shit, has seen better days. God damn, what'd they do to you? First a peg leg and now they filleted you? What the fuck? But after that, we can move on to the 8-bit minigame. Hooray! In it, we play as Anne. Who gives a fuck what the task is? Let's go to the black space using another table. Hooray! This black space section is confusing. So confusing, I actually don't even know how I completed it. Basically, as you walk through black space, you'll see several character symbols on the ground. Then, at the end, you can find several symbols that you can change into a sort of code. You might think, oh hey, just input them in the order you saw them. That's what I thought too. But, at least when I was playing, that was seemingly impossible. Then, I noticed that a few of the squares had a symbol that no other square had. So I tried to see if each square had a unique symbol, but they didn't. Then I noticed there was this dark rabbit symbol that didn't appear anywhere else in black space. So I tried to input that into each square, but that also didn't work because not every square had one. I'm so serious, I have no idea what the intended puzzle is here. I ended up just randomly guessing it, and eventually I got it. I guess set that to Foxy. Set this to Bonnie. Set this to Chica. I literally do not know what I did. I promise you, I literally do not know what I did, but I did it. If you guys have any idea what the intended solution to this puzzle is, please let me know in the comments. But once you get the plush and give it to the child, we take another look at another cutscene. This time, the man just ganks some random ass kid who was just standing there minding their own business and murders them. No motive. Jesus Christ. I'm not going to bother talking about Night 5 since it's just a harder version of Night 4. Additionally, there's no repair section after this night, only being one final 8-bit minigame. In this one, we play as Foxy. Going into black space, we can place all the plushies we've collected on podiums, which will give us the Foxy plush. Placing it on the final podium will spawn one final child and the minigame will end. Being tossed into one final cutscene, we see another kid get shanked to death. Amazing and deserved. Shouldn't have been a child, dumbass. But what about Night 6? Well, of course, as usual, we were told not to come back tonight, but we said fuck it, we ball, and decided to come back anyways. Nobody was present, we enter the office, but get a strange feeling that we're being watched. Night 6 is just a harder version of Night 5, but however, if you got the bad ending by not collecting the plushies in the black space and the 8-bit minigames, this night will be completely different, but we'll cover that later. After completing the night, a literal masterpiece of a cutscene plays out. Seriously, I can't undermine how amazing this cutscene really is. It starts with us standing in front of the arcade machine. Our suspicions are confirmed when Afton comes up behind us and fucks our shit up, knocking us out. Soon after, the arcade game glitches as fuck, and all of the animatronics walk into the back room. And let me tell you, they're itching to serve up a knuckle sandwich. Jesus Christ, cut that out, that's corny as fuck. Afton pulls out a shocking device to fuck with the robots, which shuts them down. Thinking he's won, Afton lets his guard down. That's when the spirits of the children attack him. They loosen a pipe on the wall and break it off. They shove Afton onto it, and as the pipe impales his chest, his lungs fill with blood. He slowly dies, staring at the ones whose lives he so easily took. We wake up to see the souls disappearing, finally able to rest. We leave the building, and animatronic memories comes to a close. That is, if you chose to do the true ending. And even though that final cutscene is actually a cinematic masterpiece, I actually think the bad ending is more enjoyable. Why? Well, if you don't collect the plushies, when you re-enter the building on the overtime night, instead of entering the office, we go into an unknown room with several bags laid on the floor. Opening them up, we find the actual fucking remains of the children. What the fuck? This game is so cool. Caught off guard, Afton kills us. However, before we can pass on, a shadow rabbit pulls us into the darkness and we enter another fucking dimension. What the fuck am I looking at? What the fuck? That's right, the overtime night in this game is different depending on which ending you get, and goddamn, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You'll notice that this office is set up in the same way as the normal office, having 3 directions to look in, one your desk, another your door, and the final being your window. Let's go over each threat because there's a few of them. Starting with the shadow rabbit, you'll have to constantly watch your cameras in case he appears on one of them. When he does, you have to press the big goofy ass red button on your desk to make him disappear. And that's really it for him. And that's actually the only reason you ever have to check the cameras. So, how do the other characters add anything of substance? I'm glad you asked. I'm gonna tell you because it's a fucking review, dumbass. You'll also notice on your desk you have 2 masks. Now, if you're anything like me, seeing these 2 things scare you a little, but I promise, the mechanic with these 2 isn't ass at all. Occasionally, you'll see either a fucked up baby clown face or a Ballora looking face appear on your static monitors. Whichever face you see is the mask you will have to put on until the face goes away. Bada bing, bada boom, that's another threat down. Now, the main threats we're being attacked by in the bad ending are the souls of the children, because by not collecting the plushies, we've basically been neglecting them. At your door is where Bonnie attacks. The door starts closed and is closed most of the night, with you actually not even being able to open it. Occasionally, Bonnie will attempt to force it open, and flashing your light at him will cause the door to close. Leave it open for too long, and I bet you can guess what'll happen. Moving back to your desk is where Chica will attack. Chica herself doesn't kill you, but she can be a pain in the ass if you're not ready for her. Right before the hour is about to turn, she'll reach onto your desk to pause your clock. Click her and she'll leave. But you have to be fast. If she manages to pause your clock, you'll have to complete that hour again, making the overall night last longer. This is honestly a mechanic I think is pretty damn interesting. While yes, it's annoying if you don't catch her, the way to beat her is easy enough that it isn't bullshit to deal with. Easy mechanic with a horrific consequence. I love it. Moving to your window is where Foxy and Ann are. Sadly, once again, both do the exact same thing. Occasionally, they'll pound on your window, which is now boarded up by metal bars. All you have to do is hold your flashlight on them and they'll eventually leave. Very basic. Once again, literally identical to Bonnie, just in a different location. Shine your flashlight, they leave. The final threat is Freddy, who, once again, like Chica, can't kill you by himself, but is a big annoyance. Occasionally, he'll jump in front of your face and block your view. You'll have to spam the spacebar to pull him off you and dropkick him through a chain link fence. But after that, those are all the threats. If you can manage to hold off long enough, you'll enter one last cutscene, albeit not as grandiose as the true endings. You manage to escape the grasp of the souls. As you attempt to pass on, you look back and see the souls desperately trying to pull you back into the darkness. Escaping the souls, leaving them behind to suffer forever. You move on to the afterlife, and finally fucking die. So yeah, very stark contrast between the 2 endings. I actually felt like there was a major difference, unlike in most FNAF games, which I can definitely appreciate. But with that, as far as I'm aware, that's all Animatronic Memories has to offer. Overall, I think Animatronic Memories is an enjoyable experience. I only got one ending in my playthrough, and I probably wouldn't want to get the other. Not because I don't want to see it, but because of how lackluster the gameplay loop is. With there really only being 2 mechanics, closing doors and shocking the puppet, I don't want to discourage anyone from giving this game a try. I have been very critical of Steel Wool ever since the release of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. For those of you somehow unaware, Steel Wool is the company behind Security Breach and both of the FNAF VR games. Something interesting about that is that the VR games are very good and Security Breach is a dumpster fire. Why? Well, Steel Wool is a company that specializes in VR, and if you've never been on the internet before, Security Breach is not a VR game, which probably plays a part into why it's so utterly terrible. So, with Steel Wool announcing their new non-FNAF VR game, Secret of the Mimic, I had my standards so low to the ground it was in the Earth's core. I've recently played through the entire game on stream on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Upon completion, my conclusion was that the game was actually pretty good, and I ended up giving the game a 7 out of 10. Now pause! I beat the whole game in one 7-hour sitting, and if you were to have asked me 7 hours earlier if I would have given this game a 7 out of 10, I would have definitely said no. So, how did we get here? Why did I rate it this way? And the most important question of all, did Steel Wool learn from their mistakes in Security Breach? Let's begin with the opening of the game. We're in a Fazbear Entertainment van driving to a rundown factory that was previously owned by Edwin Murray, his costume factory, Murray's Costume Manor. We're told by the Fazbear Entertainment dispatcher over the phone that we have to go inside and retrieve a few things from one of our contractors, Edwin Murray. Upon entering the building, we're greeted to an opening show that's a little bit broken, probably because of how old and run down this building is. It is here where we learn two incredibly essential game mechanics. One, cranking a lever. This may seem stupid, but I promise you will be cranking levers in this game more than any other task, so really get used to it. And maybe learn that you need to crank the lever clockwise, not counterclockwise. I'll get to that a little bit later. The other major mechanic taught here is our door key. Think of this not really as a key, but more of a key card. On it, you'll see a display of 6 symbols. Each symbol acts as a different entry-level pass, and of course, at the beginning of the game, we only have the first. Next to many doors, there will be a keyhole with a glowing symbol that indicates which level of entry is required to open the door. Very simple mechanic. I'm sure I actually didn't even need to explain all that, but let's move on. Continuing into the next room, we get a great glance at one of my favorite parts of this game, the level of fear it initially invokes. There are several empty costumes throughout this giant building, and I mean several, like a shit ton, a fuckload. Not only are just seeing them around cool, but since the Mimic can enter any suit, and for a large majority of the game, the Mimic is the only actual threat to you, at any moment, any of the costumes you see could get up and begin to move. When I first heard of this mechanic before the game was released, I was actually really turned off to the idea, just from knowing how Steel Wool handled wandering animatronics in Security Breach. For those who don't know, in Security Breach, there are also several wandering animatronics that exist solely to piss me off. A lot of that game has you sneakily maneuvering around these characters as to not be seen. However, in Security Breach, Steel Wool had not figured out how to make good character AI whatsoever. The characters in Security Breach think much more like an AI than an actual real-life threat, which I guess technically makes sense, but it isn't actually fun as a gameplay experience. If getting chased by a character, you turn a corner and hide, the animatronic will more than likely be able to guess where you are and kill you. This is not fun. Imagine you're being chased by someone or something in real life. If you turn a corner and hide without them seeing where, the chances of them knowing where you are immediately are pretty much zero. This is why chases in Security Breach aren't fun. Another reason Security Breach characters fucking suck? Animatronic spawning habits. I stated that the characters wander around. However, I neglected to mention that they will always wander somewhere near the player. For example, if the animatronic is in one room, and you move to a room that is a very far distance away from the room the animatronic is in, it obviously wouldn't be very fun from a gameplay standpoint to still have the animatronic wander in that first room. So, how do you fix this issue? Either A, have the animatronic begin walking towards the room the player entered and then continue to aimlessly wander from there. Or B, teleport the animatronic into the new room away from the player and then continue to wander. Security Breach decided that option C was even better. Why teleport the animatronic into the room and away from the player when we could instead spawn the animatronic directly fucking behind them? No, I'm not joking. In my stream of Security Breach, I actually stopped playing because of these two enormous gameplay problems. You can't have a character that will know your location the moment they see you, and then also continuously spawn those characters directly behind the player to get them seen. This does not lead to a fun gameplay experience, it leads to an incredibly frustrating one. So, how does Secret of the Mimic use wandering animatronics? Well, this is actually a spot where Steel Wool learned a lot, and there is actually a very large improvement. So, the Mimic gets into a costume and begins to wander. Let's say it sees you and a chase ensues. If you were to turn a corner and leave its line of sight, instead of knowing exactly where you are like in Security Breach, it will instead mark the last point it saw you and move there. Then it will wait to see if it can see you again, and if it can't, it will continue to walk in the direction you went in. Meaning that if you turn a corner and hid in a locker, it would not know you went into the locker and would walk past it. This is how you do a wandering threat mechanic. This creates fun strategic gameplay, not frustrating poopy ass gameplay. Anyways, we try to enter another room but see that the key symbol doesn't allow access as it's one level too high, so we continue. We find a mailbox machine, which I will say doesn't really make sense from almost any standpoint. You can insert your key into the mailbox machine to then add whatever mail was inside into your key box. And at several computers we find later, we can then read those letters. I have no idea how this makes any lick of sense in the game world, and there are several questions I could ask to break the logic of this mechanic, but I don't want this video to be an hour long, so let's just forget about this. Continuing in the other direction, we walk into this game's central hub area, where the very important security office room is located. Here we learn another frequent mechanic, jerking off generators. That's all I have to say about it. I could explain the mechanic a little bit more in detail, but I mean, just look at it. We're jerking it off. We can see the level to access the security office is one level above ours, but after jerking off the generator, it busts and the door opens and we can enter, hearing the dispatcher over the intercom inside. The dispatcher tells us that the Mimic is currently active inside the building and that it does have some homicidal tendencies. I could have figured that without him telling me, but that's cool, I suppose. It's also in this room where we find three very important and frequent machines we'll be seeing around the building: the computer, the upgrade station, and the inventory. The computer is pretty simple. With it, we can check the map of the building, read the mail we collect, and run a minigame called Moon EXE and something called Parachute.exe that requires the maximum access level to run. The upgrade station is pretty simple. It upgrades our key to the next access level. And finally, the inventory, which is a little silly. Around the map, you will be able to find several objects, most of which being collectibles, but some being important objects like cranks. You can put these objects into the inventory and then access them at any other inventory machine we find later. This bitch is literally just an ender chest. Holy shit, we've done a lot of yapping, but I had to do so in order to explain the central mechanics of this game. Now we can actually start talking about what happens. Let's take a little note. This game is very large and very long, just like my meat whistle, and it would take literally hours to talk about everything as in detail as I've been talking about it so far. So, for the sake of the sanity of you, me, and my editor, I will very simply be going over what happens for the majority of the game, only pausing to go into detail for things I think really matter, or for things that stuck out to me. I'm not going to be deep diving into every puzzle we have to solve, nor will I be mind-numbingly explaining every little bit of fucking backtracking we do. Trust me, you'll still be able to follow along with what's happening if you have a brain in your skull though, so let's continue. Using our upgraded key, we head back to that locked room from earlier and enter inside, solve a puzzle that turns the power to the building on and allows for the dispatcher to talk to us over the building's overhead intercoms. It's also here where we get our first glance at the Mimic inside of the stupid fucking elephant costume we saw at the beginning of the game, stalking us from outside of the room. Alright, here we go guys. Back in the security office, we're told that we need to find the schematics for the Mimic, which are likely in the executive office. Of course, we need the highest access level to be able to go there, and of course, all of the other upgrade stations are in random areas around the building. Have you sensed how this game is going to work? Go to this section of the building, solving puzzles and avoiding a big boss, threat, or event, upgrade your pass, come back to the hub area, and repeat until you can get to the executive area. This is not a loop that bothers me. I love linearity like this, but I also know that some people don't, so this may be a turnoff for you. We grab a crank from the inventory and make our way towards the warehouse where the next upgrade station is. We use the crank to open this gate. Oh fuck, goddamn! Alright, shit, the first scripted chase in this game. This one is pretty easy to get away from, however. Just hide in a locker and walk around it. All good. This is how most chases in this game will be, except the future ones will be random. During this chase, however, is probably when I should mention noise distractions. It's another way to manipulate the Mimic's AI. Given that the Mimic doesn't have a line of sight on you, if you cause a distraction, for example, grabbing a wind-up mouse and making noise, it will pursue the sound before continuing to look for you. This makes for a more strategic way of getting around the threats. Even though I literally only used this once throughout my whole playthrough, and it wasn't until near the end of the game, I would recommend you do this though and not play the way I do. Heading into the next area, we see we need a crank to open up a gate. Wandering into another room, we actually find the next upgrade station. That was oddly easy. However, we still need that crank. Speaking of crank, I yank my crank on the daily. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. Let's move on. We walk through a giant hole in the wall into what seems to be a place where kids can play, or something like that. We find a giant present with a crank on it. Great, let's steal this bitch. Now, this is the first section of the game where I encountered two problems. First, for the love of God, turn the cranks clockwise. I turned this crank counterclockwise, and while it will still work if you choose to do this, you will have to crank it for about 19 times as long, so just how about we turn it the right way? After cranking enough, we see Jackie, a giant puppet, jump out of the box. Some might say she's a baddie. I for one know how to keep it in my pants, however. Also, in doing this, the crank broke off and we can use it to open that pesky gate. But pause, let's talk about how I soft-locked myself here and broke the game. When I first saw that we needed a crank to open the gate, I had not yet found the Jack-in-the-Box room. So what I did was go to the inventory and pull out the last crank that was inside, as I was just taught to do so in the section previously. After doing so, I let Jackie out of the box and retrieved the second crank, which fell on the floor. I decided I liked the new crank better because the handle was red. What can I say? I'm a simple man. I took this crank to the door and realized I couldn't put it into the handle. I thought I'd try the other one that I pulled out of the inventory. So I dropped this new one on the ground, grabbed the other, and noticed I couldn't insert this one either. I then thought that maybe I broke the game and just needed to put the one I took out of the inventory back in. So I did so and went back to try to put the new crank into the handle. However, remember how I said I dropped it on the ground? Well, I happened to drop it directly into the hitboxes of some bricks, which prevented me from ever being able to pick it back up. So, I can't pick up the correct crank, and the other crank I have access to won't go into the handle. So I'm soft-locked, and I had to reset. I didn't lose much progress, but I just find it odd that with a whole team of game testers, nobody ever thought to try this. I feel like what I did wasn't even that far-fetched, but hey, maybe it was. I don't know. Just thought I'd mention that I did this. Going past this gate, we enter a room with a mailbot inside. We find a generator and our instincts kick in, so we start jerking it off. After getting it active, the gooning material Jackie enters the room. I guess the Mimic thought now was a great time to climb inside of her, which I'm assuming makes a few of you fucking freaks pretty jealous. She rudely attacks the minimum wage working mailbot and throws him into a fucking wall. Can all my wagies relate to this? Anyways, it's at this point that Jackie then sets her sights on us and the chase ensues. This chase is by far my favorite in the entire game. Something we'll notice as we continue playing this game is that it begins to lose steam as it goes on. But to be fair, that is to be expected with most games that exist. This chase has us running through the warehouse, but Jackie is fucking awesome, and throughout this chase she will be trying to hug us. Again guys, keep it in your pants, it's a robot. But as you're running through the tight corridors, you'll actually see her arms reach out from behind you, which is honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a chase before. I just can't get enough of how cool, scary, and intense this chase really was. On top of that, this chase is actually pretty damn long too, which I also think is awesome. There's a criticism I have with Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, that being, they go through the characters in that game so quickly that none of them really leave an impact. Trust me, each major antagonist like Jackie in Secret of the Mimic leaves an impact, and the length of the battle is definitely one of those reasons. Something cool about this long chase though is that there's always something different happening. Very rarely is it just run down a long hall like it's a chase straight out of Garden of Banban. There's always levers to pull and doors to open that make these chases even more intense. We slam Jackie in a gate and jerk off another generator. Believing we're safe, we continue, but guess what, fucker? Jackie is right in front of us and we're stuck in a vent. What are we to do? Well, Jackie weighs as much as a Discord moderator, thankfully, and the vent crashes. We wake up in the security office where we learn that the vent was actually right above it and we crashed through the ceiling. Yet for whatever reason, Jackie didn't kill us. We're told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the showroom back through the first room we entered. Entering the next room right before the showroom, we see a fuck ton of empty costumes. And it's here where I need to bring up what I feel is the biggest issue this game has. How and when the Mimic chooses to enter costumes. Upon coming into this room, it is incredibly likely that the Mimic will enter one of the costumes. Cool. Let's start distracting it and sneaking around. As you play this game, you will become very good at learning how to do this. But now brings up the big problem that kind of seems to have come over from Security Breach. The teleporting mechanic. I will say that in this game it's far less egregious, but it's still worth talking about. The Mimic will switch costumes sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when it switches, it tends to choose a costume to switch to randomly, even if that new costume is on the other side of the room. This very obviously leads to some pretty annoying issues. The main one being, hey look, you distracted the Mimic and moved to the other side of the room. It's now safe to walk around because there's no way the Mimic will see you. Uh-oh, fucker. You thought you were safe after you played the game by its rules and avoided the threat? Well, guess what? The Mimic has now entered a costume that's directly in front of you. This is obviously a big problem. On multiple occasions throughout my playthrough, I'd walk directly into a costume that the Mimic was in because I knew that previously it wasn't close to me. Even though I was keeping tabs on where the threat was, I was still punished. I feel like this took away from the immersion and fear factor and instead left me feeling pretty annoyed and frustrated. But continuing, we enter a room and find my favorite character in this entire game. A tiny little cleaning robot who's just sweeping the floor. There are several of these throughout the game, they're adorable and I love them dearly, and I chose to name all of them Rufus. So I will be calling them this throughout the rest of the video. Want to hear the best part about Rufus? You can literally pet him! Give him some head pats! I fucking love this game! Hi! Oh my god! Oh my god! I fucking love this thing, bro! Pat! Oh my goodness, go. Pat! Oh, one more! Oh my god! As I was streaming this, someone actually drew fan art of me and Rufus, which I think is just awesome. Also, while looking for this fan art for the editor to throw on screen, I also found a sketch of some more Skags and Rufus fan art. So here's that art too. We find an elevator that's fucked as shit by a costume head. We have to use a machine that teaches us how to fix it instead of just grabbing the head out of the gears ourselves like a normal person. I don't really know why safety is a big concern now, given the fact we willingly went into a building with an actual murder robot. We have to retrieve the maintenance cassette to learn how to properly fix the elevator, which is conveniently located in a room approximately 95 football fields in length away. Which means we have to walk back through the room of bullshit, dick-ass, fuck-ass costumes. After grabbing the cassette, we head back to the elevator and learn the process of fixing it. Keep this in mind because it will become incredibly important later. We fix the elevator and can continue moving on. Going up the elevator, we find Rufus number 2, give him a pat, and enter the showroom where we meet the next big bad. Fucking Music Man. By the way, I know his name is Big Top in this game, but I'm choosing to call him Music Man instead, so eat my ass. While I think this section is very fun, here is where I also found another way to softlock myself. However, before I talk about how, let's go over what it is we're supposed to do. The goal in this section is to spin the prize wheel, but you have to complete minigames and beat the scores in order to win prize wheel spins. Music Man will be watching you the whole time. You'll see multiple mannequins around the area for some reason, and if you walk into any of them, they will make a lot of noise.
I want to pay money to play these games.
Keep that in mind. The first game I chose to play had us shooting targets with a toy gun. However, I found it way more fun to shoot the stupid fucking Helpy Bear in the face. After completing this minigame, the power to the large room goes off, and Music Man goes into attack mode. Thankfully, he is bolted to the ground and can't actively move around, but he will spin in a circle trying to look for you. If you make too much noise, either by walking, running, or bumping into one of the mannequins, then he will immediately turn towards you and buttfuck your pussy and or bussy. After the lights went out, several more mannequins spawned, acting more like a maze now. You'll have to quickly move around them because again, Music Man is rotating in a circle and will kill you if he sees you, so you have to move fast. Once you get back to the entrance, you will have to complete an energy puzzle. But you want to know something cool? It's timed! Yay! As you're trying to complete it, Music Man will slowly pull himself towards you. If you're too slow, he's gonna have a bussy buffet. After you turn the power back on, I guess he decides he doesn't want to kill you anymore and goes back to behaving. Now we're free to do the wheel spin. Fun fact, it's rigged as shit, and you'll always get nothing on every spin except the last one. But after getting your spins done, we have to go play another minigame. The next one I chose to do was one of those classic games where we have to throw a ball at some big goofy ass teeth. However, once again, I found it much more amusing to throw the balls at Helpy instead. Let's speed this up. You have to play a minigame, sneak around the Music Man, and quickly solve the energy puzzle 3 times in a row to complete this section. On the final wheel spin, we win the grand prize and can continue. But let me explain how I soft-locked myself first. Somehow, this is even dumber than the last time. So, there are 3 minigames to do in this section. The first shooting minigame, the ball throwing game, and the second space shooting minigame, which plays the same as the first, but it's in space. What you're supposed to do is play each minigame once. However, there's nothing preventing you from playing any of the games more than once. So what I did was do the first shooting minigame, then the ball minigame, and then in the third cycle decided to do the first shooting minigame again, because like I said, the game allowed me to. When you enter one of those minigame areas and start the minigame, a door closes behind you to prevent you from fucking something up. However, since the game didn't expect me to do the same game twice, after I beat the score and the power went off, signaling me to go do the power puzzle, the doors behind me never opened back up, and I was stuck in the minigame room, soft-locked. Again, I have no idea how in testing nobody ever caught this. This seems like such a simple mistake for a player to make, even more simple than the last problem I had. If any of the devs are watching this video, please, fix this, please. Thank you. Anyways, after winning the grand prize, we can head up the stairs and hear a large crash. What the fuck? We look down where we were before and see that Music Man has broken himself off the floor and is nowhere to be found. Well, looks like we're fucked. We solve a puzzle to upgrade our key and continue moving forward. We head out onto the roof of the building and the game autosaves. Uh-oh. Here comes a boss fight. As we explore, we see Music Man climb the fucking building like King Kong and the chase begins. Now, you remember how I said I really liked Jackie's chase? I cannot say the same for Music Man's. His chase isn't inherently bad, I just personally am not a fan. I will say that it does start pretty sick. We begin by running down some spiral-like stairs with him crawling down the center, which looks fucking awesome. But then, we get to the fuck-ass office building chase, which I hate. You will have to run through different office rooms, and Music Man's arms will break through the ceiling, preventing you from going into some rooms. So you'll really have to be on your toes. But here's the reason I dislike this chase so much. Usually in cases that have this think on your toes mechanic, you have to learn which path you need to take. And for me specifically, who doesn't handle chases very well in any game, it takes me a few attempts to learn the chase. Well, each time you do this chase, the path you need to take becomes randomized. So I never had the chance to learn the pattern. I just had to throw myself at it over and over again until I got lucky. Is this in part a skill issue? 100% it is, but I am giving my review and I personally am not a huge fan of this section of the chase. After the office section, we move to what I'll call the crawling section. The chase gets much better from here. As we crawl through a tight corridor, Music Man's arms will slam through the ceiling and we just have to avoid them. Super easy. Then we get to the mannequin section, and the chase begins to get bad again. Not nearly as bad as the office section though. I like how this part of the chase uses a mechanic we saw from Music Man earlier, however, I still want to die. There's one corridor where Music Man will slam his arm through the ceiling and leave a mannequin behind, and if you slow down for even a fraction of a second, you will die. And I did die, and then I shit myself. Once we get past that, we find another staircase. Music Man crawls down, but just like Jackie, is fat as shit and breaks the stairs. We fall together, and when the smoke clears, we see that Music Man got burned the fuck up. Oh shit, bitch got burned to smithereens. Eat a dick, Paul Blart! Okay, we're good. Not even a problem. We head back to the security office and are told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the theater. Once we arrive there, we learn in order to enter the theater, we need to be wearing a costume, specifically what appears to be a springlock costume, which leads me to believe that it was Edwin who designed the springlock mechanics and not William. Lore! Anyways, it's not just as easy as hopping into the suit and going in. We first have to find all the limbs and the head, which are scattered around the area. Oh, also, in this room, we see Rufus number 3. Pet. Getting the pieces is not hard. Avoiding the mimic who teleports into a fuck ton of costumes kind of is. Collecting all the pieces probably took me 40 minutes, but if you're actually talented, you could probably do it in 10. Just know, it's not hard. But if you want to see me do it, you can see it in the VOD on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Hopping into the suit, we move on. While in this suit, the mimic will not be able to tell it's us, so we're completely safe. However, while in the suit, we won't be able to perform important tasks, so we'll have to hop out of the suit to do so, leaving us vulnerable. Our suit is also equipped with a gun, which is honestly just giving me way too much power. Anyways, we have to solve a power puzzle and move on to the next room where we need to ditch our suit for the time being. It's also here where we learn the point of this section of the building, to act as a place that will write stories and create shows for people. Who really gives a fuck about that though? Why give a shit when I can see a ghost-ass white tiger costume giggling like a schoolgirl? Yes, I'm serious. What the fuck is that? Moving on, we solve a quick puzzle that wasn't quick for me at all because I'm bad, and that allows us to continue moving our suit and move on to the special event of this section, the show. The show itself is boring as dick. Throughout, we have to use the gun on our suit to shoot some targets to progress the story, and occasionally shoot little puppets that try to attack us. But here we learn something super interesting. This game takes place in the 50s, so long before the first Freddy's location. Yet somehow, both Foxy and Roxy are in this show, which leads me to believe that Edwin designed those two characters as well. Lore! More lore! After completing the show, the ledge we're standing on breaks and we get fucked up. We wake up in a hospital area with a thick-ass nurse taking care of us. She believes that we're a robot because, no shit, we're sitting in a suit. She notices that there's a foreign object inside of us, and I tell her I have a foreign object that could be inside of her too. If you couldn't guess, Nurse Sweet Cheeks will be the boss of this section. While we move around, we see that she's stuck on a track, so great. Her movement is limited. Oh god damn it, she broke off the fucking track and is now free roaming. Fuck! Since the area we're in now in the building is a recycling center, in order to continue, we need to do some recycling. And of course, Nurse Boner Alert is roaming the whole time. This section isn't too hard, and I actually kind of liked it, even despite the fact it may seem like otherwise in the VOD on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Thankfully for us, I didn't softlock myself in this area this time. It's also in this area where we find the next upgrade station, and we're actually almost completely upgraded. After recycling all of the trash, the chase begins. This one is a bit different. It takes place on a conveyor belt that she's walking against. We have to shoot garbage out of some vents to fuck her ass up and push her into some lava. Wow, that was, actually surprisingly easy. I was concerned I was going to be stuck on this chase for an hour like I was with Music Man. Moving on with our brand spanking new upgrade, we begin to head back to the security office and oh, for fuck's sake, the lava didn't kill her! Of course the chase isn't over, you moron, that was way too fast. Before I talk about this chase, I want to mention how fucking awesome the music for it is. It's my favorite song in the whole soundtrack, and I'll make sure it's the background music for this section. You hear that, editor? It better be the fucking chase music in the background right now, or I'm gonna make the next video you edit be 3 hours long. Got it? Alright, good boy. The chase continues through the recycling center, with some fun sneaking sections mixed in too. But what I really want to talk about is the elevator section. What I assumed was the end of the chase is when we entered the elevator and escape. The elevator breaks and we have to listen to Fiona, who we later find out is Edwin's wife, teach us how to fix it again. Remember how I said to remember the fixing section from earlier? This is why. After fixing the elevator, Nurse Hotbottom drops her fat ass cheeks on top of the elevator. And now we have to fix it again. But this time, we're against the clock for her pegging me. Yay! I'm so fucking excited to fix this elevator for the next half an hour. Yes, it actually took me that long. I'm so fucking terrible at playing games. In all reality, this section isn't hard. I'm actually just terrible. After we get the elevator fixed, it starts rising quickly. Knowing it's about to get squished in the ceiling, we get to watch the Mimic jump out of the 4th hottest animatronic in the whole franchise right before it gets fucked up. And this chase comes to a close. I think this chase so far is the weakest in the game, but I do think the reveal of what the Mimic actually looks like is pretty cool and adds some points to it though. We get back to the security office and the dispatcher tells us the next place we have to go is the admin wing, which is through the warehouse. Amazing. What's in the warehouse to blow my guts up like Nagasaki? Well, it's a fat, ugly, Chica looking ass bitch. Actually, I liked this section. It was simple, yet straightforward. The goal is to find 3 pieces to a power puzzle, then solve it and vacate the area. The pieces are scattered throughout the warehouse and the Chica ripoff is skating around trying to find you. Very simple, very fun, not much else to say about it. We head through the gate and move on to the next area, which contained a puzzle that gave me a terrible headache. I should note that throughout my playthrough, I decided that every time I died, I'd take a shot, and I died a lot. So having to think hard on a puzzle this deep into the game in my state took a lot out of me. But after a bunch of trial and error, we made it work and could continue. Oh wait, I forgot to mention that after you do this puzzle once and get to the other side of the room, then you have to do it again. I want to kill myself. Moving on to the next room, we see Carl the Cupcake? What the fuck? Did Edwin design that too? Well, whatever. When you get close to a Carl, they will make a fuck ton of noise. I'm betting you can guess where this is going. The next area has apparently not Ripoff Chica return, in a tight, cramped office area with a metric ass load of Carls around to ruin your day. I also want to mention that while playing this section, I got asked by someone in chat, quote, "If a femboy hit on you, would you fold?" This is not at all important to the gameplay one bit, just thought I'd mention how weird you freaks are. Moving to the next room, we find Rufus number 4. Pet. We also find the next upgrade station, and I figured out that this section is the lore dump area of the game. Yay, my favorite, lore dumping! Anyways, it's at this point we enter the room we've been trying to get to this whole time and download the Mimic blueprints. A very small chase with Chica begins. You just crawl into a vent. Awesome. This is kind of where I feel the game really starts to lose steam and turn more into a lore festival than a game. Moving on to the next area, we find Rufus number 5. Pet. You might be wondering what the boss of this section is. No way it was Chica, right? You're correct. It most certainly was not Chica. We head underground into the darkest room of all time and learn that the major fight of this section is against the stupid white tiger ghost costume we saw earlier. The tiger teleports around and can't go into the light. Lights around the dark room turn off and on, so you have to dash from one section to the other. At the end of the mad dash, there's a glowing star, which is probably important to the lore in some way. You take that star through a fucked up maze, all while the tiger will randomly teleport in front of you, jump scaring you and making you restart. I'm not really the biggest fan of this section, I can't lie, so I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as I can. After getting through the maze, you set the star back down and do another mad dash section. Do this mad dash to maze section 3 times and we're done. Thank God. After this, we head to an elevator and all the way back up to the security office. The dispatcher tells us our work here is done and we should put our key into the inventory and leave. Does this at all sound a bit suspicious to you? Well, who really cares? We're done. We put the key back in the inventory and walk out of the building. On the drive home, the dispatcher calls us and asks why he hasn't been able to get a hold of us for the last few hours. Confused, our character, whose name is fucking Arnold, by the way, horrible name. Anyway, sorry. Confused, Arnold tells the dispatcher that he's been talking to him the whole time, and that he just told him to put his key away. The dispatcher is confident that he never told Arnold to do this, and it's here where we learn that the Mimic had been mimicking the voice of the dispatcher throughout the intercoms throughout the entire game. The Mimic tricked us into giving it the blueprints so that it could destroy them. Looking behind us, we see the Mimic in the back of the van, and it attacks, and the game comes to a close, giving us the bad ending. As the credits play out, we see ourselves in the POV of Freddy, with Chica and Bonnie at our sides, with the Mimic watching us perform. Hold the fuck up. Pause. What the fuck just happened? Well, as I said, what we just did was the bad ending. There's a few more endings to cover. I will note that I only got 2 endings, the bad ending and the extended bad ending. What the fuck does extended bad ending mean? Well, let's go over that one now. Going back to being able to put the key in the inventory, if we instead take it and travel deeper into the building, the mimic shows its true colors and tells us that we're going to die. We travel to some vents and head back up to the first room we entered and travel down through the floor deeper into the facility. It's at this moment when we're attacked by fucking Music Man again. What the fuck? I thought he was dead. As we travel down this large elevator, he will slowly begin crawling after us. Every once in a while, the elevator will stop and we'll have to quickly pull some levers to get it to continue moving. This random fight was so unexpected, I actually think it's pretty cool that he came back out of nowhere. I was honestly pleasantly surprised considering how much I hated his original fight. After escaping, we enter a new room, seeing a massive Freddy head. The original Freddy. Remember, it's the 50s, years before the first Freddy's location, yet here he is. Why? Well, it's at this section we learn that Edwin was actually originally in charge of the Freddy Fazbear Project, which is one of the craziest twists of all fucking time. But I'm gonna be real, it also makes the entirety of the lore all the more confusing. Oh yeah, also, Rufus number 6. Pet pet. Moving on, we enter the room where we ended at in the bad ending, seeing Bonnie and Chica half-built performing on stage. But wait, they were way more built than this at the end of the bad ending. Does that mean that the Mimic finished building them during that ending? Keep that thought in the back of your head. Going to a computer, we activate the stage lights to watch the show, and the Mimic crawls out of the pile of endoskeletons. Not in a costume, just a jumbled mess of fuck. This section confused me a little bit, but it's actually pretty cool. We have to get to the office in the back room, but the Mimic will close the doors when we get near them. This is literally just Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but in reverse, where the Mimic is trying to keep us out of the office. It's actually so fucking cool. Around the room there are 2 Springlock costumes, one of Bub, a boss from FNAF World, which is weird, and another of Monty from Security Breach. Holy fucking shit, how many things did Edwin create? This is insane! What you have to do is get in the Springlock costumes and leave them next to the doors. This will make the Mimic close the doors and waste power. However, you'll notice when you bring the first Springlock to the door, the fake dispatcher says, "It cannot see you in the suit, but I can." That's right, the fake dispatcher actually isn't the Mimic. So, who could it be? After leaving both suits at the doors, 2 more doors open, revealing that there are an additional 2 doors we need to block with 2 more Springlock suits. Awesome! As we walk to the next set of doors, the fake dispatcher voice starts to change into a more female-sounding voice.
It will trap us both down here in the dark.
Isn't that interesting? The remaining 2 Springlock suits are Lefty, what? Nah, just kidding. I'm pretty sure this is just Fredbear. And the other appears to be Spring Bonnie. Are we serious? Did Edwin literally just create everything by himself? Did William just steal every idea from him? This is so fucking weird, it's completely flipping everything we know about the lore on its head. After blocking the remaining 2 doors, the fake dispatcher opens them, revealing that it's been Fiona, Edwin's wife, that's been talking to us the entire time. As a machine? I'm so sorry, I really have no fucking idea what's going on. I know I'm really bad at explaining lore, but I'm trying my best. It seems like Fiona has turned into a goddamn robot. I'm assuming at some point she died to something and Edwin was like, "Fuck that, I want a robot wife now," and somehow put her soul into this machine in the building? Or some shit? I don't really know, guys, I'm sorry. Fiona tells us we have to head to their house, which is apparently in the fucking building underground for some reason. Literally, what the fuck is going on? Fiona tells us that Edwin abandoned her and their son David by doing nothing but working non-stop. Originally, the Mimic was supposed to entertain David while Edwin was working, but at some point it gained homicidal tendencies for some reason. Please, correct me on anything I'm wrong about in the comments, guys. I'm pretty sure most theories I'm going to attempt to form in this video will be incorrect as fuck. We travel into the house section and have to collect a bunch of film reels scattered around while avoiding the Mimic. At the end of each film reel is a number, and matching the color of the reel to the colors of the letters in the name David, visible on a picture on the projector, we'll be able to figure out the code to open a door that's located upstairs. Just don't question it, guys. Just go with it at this point. The FNAF lore hasn't made any sense since Ultimate Custom Night anyways. In these tapes, we see Edwin's neglect for his wife and son, and in one tape, see that the fucking Mimic is Fiona? What the fuck is happening right now? So, I guess at some point, Fiona fucking died, so Edwin had the Mimic start mimicking her to be a mother figure to David? Do you guys think after the Mimic took over Fiona's role, Edwin fucked the Mimic too? Dear Lord, guys, the fanfic writers are about to go apeshit with this. Inputting the code, we enter one of the final rooms and find Rufus number 7. Pet, pet. We also get to hear an audio recording that is so fucking confusing, I don't even want to talk about it. Nor do I even know where to begin talking about it. Basically, in this recording, Edwin sounds like he's hurt, as he continues to ask M2, which by the way is what they call the Mimic in this game, for help and to call an ambulance. The Mimic, who at this point is mimicking Edwin, is talking to Edwin like Edwin is David. My brain is about to fucking explode. So, Edwin is dying and begging the Mimic for help, but the Mimic is in fucking La La Land and is pretending to be Edwin, and is pretending that the dying Edwin is David, and is neglecting the fake David, who is Edwin, who needs help and is dying. Does that make sense? I don't blame you if you think it doesn't, because it's confusing as fuck. We enter a hidden surveillance room and run cradle.exe like Fiona asked us to. But the Mimic finds us and the final chase ensues. We jerk off a generator which starts a fire because it wouldn't be a FNAF game without one of those, now would it? And we enter an elevator, leaving the Mimic on that floor. As we travel up in the elevator, Fiona begins talking through the intercoms to the Mimic and calling it Edwin. Which would lead me to believe that Edwin somehow put himself into the Mimic while he was dying? Or maybe they're pulling a complete 180 and in that recording we just heard, the Edwin begging for help is actually the Mimic, and the real Edwin is the one pretending that the dying Edwin is David? I swear to God, this has to be one of the most mindfuck type shit I've ever seen in my life. After exiting the elevator, the final chase ensues. Running through really tight corridors, not only is the Mimic, or is it Edwin chasing us? I have no fucking idea at this point. But on top of that, a bunch of little fucked up looking munchkin robots are chasing us as well. They vaguely remind me of the little smiling critters from Poppy Playtime. We run onto a small metal bridge and the Mimic drops down in front of us, but before it can pounce on us like I pounced on an Arby's beef and cheddar, another metal platform falls out of the sky and crushes that bitch. But the chase is still not over. We have to crawl through the burning building as the little fuckhead abominations crawl after us, hop onto a roller coaster cart, and finally we can relax as it drives us to the exit. Just kidding! It drops us off next to a bunch of fire, and we have to run through the burning building into the parking lot where even more little gremlins surround us. We jump into the van and we're out of that bitch, still with our key and the Mimic blueprints in our arms. As we race away from the building, the little bitching nematodes attack our van, and if that wasn't enough, somehow the Mimic has also gotten onto our van and punches the shit out of the windshield. The van crashes, and as we come to, the Mimic reaches in and grabs our key from us, attaching it to its body and leaving us to die in the burning vehicle. The Mimic, Edwin, whoever the fuck it is, didn't want to kill us. It seems it only wanted the blueprints, but I'm not sure why. And that's where the extended bad ending comes to a close. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did I say the extended bad ending? What I meant to say earlier was the true ending. Yes, I'm 100% serious. That is the true ending to Secret of the Mimic. No matter what you do, you still lose in the end. The Mimic will always beat you. But what about the New Game Plus secret ending? Wait, Dxtr, there's a New Game Plus? What does it add? A bunch of fucking nothing, really. If on New Game Plus you collect all 25 collectibles and put them in the inventory, complete moon.exe, and go to get the true ending, you'll be able to unlock a bunch of doors you couldn't open previously in the house section. You'll be able to collect 6 different cassettes, which will open a vent. Following the vent will bring you to a bedroom, which can only be assumed to be David's. Inside, you'll find a podium with a book on it. If you put the white tiger collectible on top, the Mimic, pretending to be David, will creep out of the closet. A recording will start playing, reading him a story. Every so often, the story will stop, which makes the Mimic mad. It will transform back to normal and try to attack you. You'll need to continue the story by pressing the correct buttons. You'll notice each button represents a Five Nights at Freddy's character. A bear for Freddy, a rabbit for Bonnie, a chicken for Chica, a fox for Foxy, an alligator for Monty, and a dog for... who the fuck knows? Roxy? I know she's a wolf, but eat my ass. The order you need to press the buttons is rabbit, chicken, dog, and bear. After that, the Mimic will tweak the fuck out and you'll be able to inject the original M2 schematics, which was supposed to be David, back into the Mimic. It will then transform back into David. grab the tiger, and go to sleep in the bed. Then the true ending continues to play out how it did before. What does this weird little secret ending tell us though? Well, here are my initial thoughts. Note, I am no expert theorist, and I'm probably about to be wrong as fuck. They call the mimic M2 throughout this game. M2, I'm assuming, was supposed to be David after his death. That's why I think we downloaded the blueprints for the mimic, or M2, who was David, and injected it back into the mimic in the secret ending. Because obviously, once we do that, it stops attacking us and just plays as David. M1, who isn't explicitly mentioned in this game, I'm assuming is Fiona, who I'm also going to make a stretch about and say she's also Glitchtrap. I'm thinking the Mimic and Glitchtrap are completely different, and are just two iterations of the same idea. Maybe that was obvious, and maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. I have no idea. I think that's honestly what the secret of the Mimic was. I think that the secret is that there are two of them, technically. The endoskeleton, M2, or David, and Glitchtrap, M1, or Fiona. Where Edwin falls into this, aside from creating both of them and apparently seemingly every major animatronic from all of the games and all the fucking spring locks? Again, I'm not sure. I like to complain about games. Analysis is not my strong suit. But as far as I'm aware, that is all Secret of the Mimic has to offer. In all honesty, I went into this game expecting to hate it. But it's honestly now one of my favorite official Five Nights at Freddy's games, only being beaten by Pizzeria Simulator. Seriously, nothing can beat that final Henry monologue. It's very clear that Steelwool has learned from their mistakes in Security Breach. There are plenty of questions left to answer, like which ending in this game is canonical, and if it's the secret ending, then how is the Mimic in Security Breach? I'll leave actual talented people to figure that out while I keep making sex jokes and yelling at horror games. Again, I believe in terms of gameplay that this game is solid. I do think it starts to lose a lot of steam after the nurse chase, and I think that the final fight against the Mimic is a bit underwhelming. But I also feel like that was somewhat intended. Of course we were supposed to lose. We know the Mimic appears in later games. There was never a way to properly defeat it. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. After the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the only other times we see the toy animatronics are in a box in FNAF 3 and Ultimate Custom Night. But what actually happened to them to cause them to appear in the box in Five Nights at Freddy's 3? Well, the game we'll be covering today aims to answer that. Today, we'll be looking at Fazbear Entertainment Storage, a game that was originally actually never meant to be a game in the first place. But after seeing what it has to offer, I think you'll be happy that the game was made. I know I was. Join me as we enter the storage facility where the toy animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2 were stored before being scrapped. And if you stick around, you'll find out why they were ever even scrapped in the first place. Clapping my ass cheeks into night one, we begin with a phone call as typical. The man on the phone introduces himself as Henry, and I can only assume that this is the Henry from the official FNAF games. He tells us that we're needing to watch the animatronics in the storage facility. They've been decommissioned, but he says he has a reason to believe that someone has been sneaking in and tampering with the animatronics in an attempt to reactivate them for an unknown reason. We actually have a few different tools at our disposal, and I'll explain them as they become relevant. On night one, the only characters are Toy Bonnie and the one I would let choke me out until I'm at the brink of death, as long as she did it with her feet, Toy Chica. Both of these animatronics are very simple in their mechanics, but together they show off two incredibly important mechanics this game has to offer. That being your ceiling vent and your mask. Let's start with Toy Bonnie. I'm not going to be explaining most of the animatronics' movement patterns because who really cares where they go when they're not in your office? Bonnie will attack you from your left vent. A sound cue will be played to let you know he's there, which is something that I praise God for every day of my life. Put that fucking mask on right now. Oh my god. Yo, that was sick. Did you see that? No shit, you saw it. You were looking right at it. Why the fuck did I say that? That was a very stupid thing to say. I love sound cues. When Bonnie enters her vent, you can check to make sure he's there by using your flashlight. You need to be careful because like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, your flashlight has a power supply, and using it too much will cause it to die. You know, like a flashlight does, dumbass. When you confirm Bonnie is in your vent, all you have to do is throw on your Freddy mask. This makes a lot of sense since these are literally the characters from the second official game. Of course, in typical fuck-ass, stupid-ass, dumb-ass Toy Bonnie fashion, instead of just leaving like a normal person, he'll enter your office and just kind of stare at you like a dunce for a while, which I will add looks really fucking sick. I love how newer fan games like this are adding detailed animatronics to their characters in situations where typically they would just be a still image. It's one of the reasons I really liked Graveyard Shift at Freddy's too. Now let's talk about Toy Chica, aka Gibaroni and Cheese. Chica attacks from your ceiling vent, which you can see is accompanied by a vent door. Ooh. Oh my god, holy shit. This is probably the point in time where I should talk about the building's power supply. The storage facility has a power supply similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 1, where doing certain actions causes it to drain. Luckily for us, the cameras do not cause any power supply to drain, so you can use them as much as you want to watch Toy Chica walk around the map. You little fucking goonaholics. Oh my god, she's huge. Mama. Closing this ceiling vent causes the power to drain, and closing the vent is also how you keep Chica out. Through sound cues, you'll be able to hear her enter the vent. You can do this by toggling the cameras to your vent cams. If you look closely, you'll be able to see her hiding behind one of the vent fans. If you're nervous about these vent cams, by the way, don't worry. You don't need to be concerned about these. Yet. Once Chica does appear in your vent office with another fantastic animation, all you need to do is close the vent. And after what is sometimes a really long time, she will leave. Again, that's all this night has to offer. So let's hot bottom into night 2. Night 2 introduces the fattest animatronic Scott Braden Cawthon has ever designed, Toy Freddy. Seriously, what a fat piece of shit Toy Freddy is. Most of the toy animatronics were meant to protect the children in the pizzeria, but this fat bastard was eating those little bitches like a goddamn grilled cheese. Estimating that there's over 78,000 calories in an average-sized kid, and this roly-poly ass bear over here is eating at minimum 6 a day, you do the math and figure out why this fat ass hasn't felt the touch of a woman in over 3 decades. So, what does the inflation fetish himself actually do? Well, considering the 2 entrances we've covered so far are small vents, you already know this monster-sized creature isn't fitting in there. So instead, he has to attack from the large hallway on the right of your office. When he shows up, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him and he'll go away. Probably because he hasn't seen sunlight in over 12 years because he's been stuck in his room all day on Discord and League of Legends, arguing about how no, he actually isn't fat, he's just on a bulk right now and he's gonna cut soon. I'd say more like he's gonna cut the fucking fruits out of his diet. Did you know this gargantuan robot removed the light bulb from his fridge because it hurt his eyes every time he opened it to get food? For most, that wouldn't be an issue, but for how commonly he was opening it throughout the day, I guess it is understandable why it became a problem for him. Alright, I feel like all that bullying was appropriate. How about we move on to night 3, shall we? Night 3 adds the combo of the century. Mangle and the little fucking freak geek himself, Balloon Bitch. I mean, Balloon Boy. I didn't mean boy. I meant bitch. You caught me red-handed. What can I say? Since I hate him so much, I'll start with him. Balloon Boy does literally exactly what he does in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Enters your left vent.
Hello?
If you don't put your mask on fast enough, he'll swipe the batteries from your flashlight and goon in the corner of your office. Hence why I call him the little fucking freak geek. In all reality though, Balloon Boy isn't a problem at all. I actually only ever had to deal with him maybe 3 times throughout my entire playthrough. Literally, the moment you put your mask on, he runs past you and you can instantly take it back off. So let's talk about the real threat of this night, who is honestly the biggest threat in the entire game, Mangle. Mangle is the reason you have to worry about your vent cameras, because that's where she goes. Once she enters your vent, she'll have 3 paths to go, all of which go towards a fan. If you look at your maintenance panel, which I've neglected to mention thus far, you'll be able to see 3 fan icons. These fans correlate directly to the fans in your vent, and they are what's keeping you from dying via heat stroke. You'll hear a vent sound cue letting you know Mangle has moved once she's in the vents. When you hear this sound, you need to drop everything you're doing and deal with her as fast as you can, since once you hear her move, you won't have much time to react. You'll need to quickly find which of the 3 vents she went to and seal it. If you don't do so in time, Mangle will literally throw herself into the fan, breaking a piece off of her to break your fan. If she breaks all 3, uh-oh Stinky, you're dead as fuck. Night 4 adds nothing new and is really just a harder version of Night 3. However, Night 5 adds another character that, surprise, surprise, I'm not the biggest fan of. The Marionette. Do you love random bullshit? The Marionette does. At random, you will hear a wind sound. Why a wind sound? I don't fucking know.
Take a breath. What the fuck was that? Don't hit me with that. What the hell was that about?
Were you busy doing something when you heard this wind sound? Stop being busy is what the Marionette says to you. Come find my Marionette instead, bitch. Pause. When you hear the wind sound, the Marionette will spawn randomly on one of your non-vent cameras. And when she does, all you have to do is find her and stare at her until she disappears. However, this can prove to be difficult at times, especially when the timing doesn't have your best interests at heart, which, by the way, it never will. It wouldn't be a FNAF game without a 6th night though, of course. So what are we thinking? Harder version of Night 5, maybe? How about 2 new animatronics blowing up your butt like it's the 4th of July? Does that not sound like a good time? No, it doesn't? Well, how about too fucking bad? How does that sound? Night 6 deactivates every character we've seen so far. Henry tells us on the phone in Night 5 that after our shift, he would personally be dismantling all of the animatronics. And he's a man of his word. However, it's clear that there were 2 animatronics he forgot. And those are the characters present on Night 6. Spring Bonnie and Fredbear. Fredbear didn't make me want to pee blood, so let's talk about him first. Both characters in this night have multiple different attacks, and Fredbear's just so happened to be the least annoying of the 2. Fredbear's normal attack is just like Toy Bonnie, where he comes from the left vent. You'll be able to hear metal clanking coming from the vents. When you do, you'll have to quickly throw your mask on. Unlike Bonnie, you won't be able to see Fredbear in the vent. He'll just pile drive right through it directly into your office. To do this? Yup. Damn. His other attack is an interesting one. I have a generalized question for you. Do you enjoy looking through your cameras? Well, Fredbear doesn't like you doing that. Fredbear has the ability to disable cameras. How do you fix them? Great and necessary question. In your maintenance panel where you can see your fans, you'll also see a shock button. When you click it, it allows you to choose a camera to shock. If you shock a disabled camera, it will turn back on, allowing you to see it again. Be aware that shocking cameras do drain power, and the shock button also has a cooldown, so you can't just spam it. Fredbear alone is simple sugar, but mix him with Spring Bonnie and you'd rather wish there was a colony of fire ants crawling around in your urethra. Spring Bonnie is a bitch. He's such a bitch. Spring Bonnie attacks your ceiling vent, except unlike Chica, you won't be able to see him, only hear him. If you hear the vent banging, you had better close that vent as fast as you possibly can before he gets there and reams you in the rectum. Chill, I did it. This actually took me an embarrassingly long time to understand and figure out in my playthrough, and you can laugh at me while I figure it out on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Spring Bonnie has 2 other attacks, however. Let's dive into the less annoying of the 2 first. Exactly like Fredbear, Bonnie also doesn't like you looking at your cameras and will occasionally take up the entire screen of one. If you don't shock the camera he's on quick enough, he will permanently disable your camera for the rest of the night. So just shock him and you'll be Sigma. His other attack, however, is AIDS. Just pure AIDS. Just like Fredbear, Bonnie will also enter your office. However, when he does, you can't look at him or you will spontaneously combust. This brings up a problem that gets a little confusing to solve at times, because there's no great way to solve it that feels like you're solving anything. It's hard to explain. If you're in a camera while Bonnie is in your room, then congrats, you're safe. But because you'll be in your cameras most of the night, this threat really isn't a threat, but it can often catch you with your pants down. It's just overall a super confusing mechanic that I feel is very out of place and awkward. Something that I really like about this night is the music that plays while you're trying to beat it. I want you to do a freestyle of this. I'd do it, but I'd just make it gay. If you guys want to sit right here, I'm actually really okay with that. You guys just want to sit and chill right here? Okay, you know what? That's fine. It reminds me a lot of Playtime with Percy, where the later fights in those nights also have music playing, which I also think is a game we all can agree is fantastic. You should watch my video about it here on Dxtr White after you finish this one. This game does have a custom night too. Would I recommend playing it? No. Did I beat it? No. Mainly because I would rather die than deal with all of the toys plus Fredbear and Spring Bonnie at the same time. I know some of you are masochists, but for the normal people like myself, we like having fun while we play games. But as far as story goes, that's all Fazbear Entertainment Storage has to offer. A short, sweet, simple game that's a lot of fun to spend time playing. Some may call it mediocre, some may call it boring, but I think it's perfect just the way it is. Just like you, baby girl. I see the way you look at me when you walk past me in the hall. Shake it for me. Okay. Anyways. In my Mario and animatronic horror video, I asked you guys what your favorite non-typical FNAF fan game was. My favorite comment was this one from Games 1983. They said Day Shift at Freddy's, and I think that's a great answer. It's a game that I have yet to play, but I've been recommended a lot. I know it's super funny, and I totally intend on making a video on it in the future. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in hearing me talk about. It would be a long video though. The question of this video is, what is your least favorite mainline Five Nights at Freddy's game and why? With the question of the video being asked, I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!